Chapter 553. Wang Ling's calves were different from Super Chen's and Fang Xing's. They weren't as slender or muscular, and the first impression they gave was that they were clean and well-proportioned. He rolled up his trouser legs and then tied them up like the other boys. At that moment, Teacher Yi looked at Wang Ling and observed his muscles. During the test run earlier, Wang Ling had been able to easily jog on the spirit sword without a blush or gasping for breath. This was clearly the result of his regular cultivation and exercise. Apart from PE classes, Teacher Yi had also worked as a fitness coach. He felt that given Wang Ling's physical ability, he should at least have distinct muscles, instead of looking like he didn't have any at all. Student Wang Ling is a little thin. Teacher Yi couldn't help frowning. Next to him, a boy whose muscles were even more exaggerated than Super Chen's couldn't help laughing. Is this bro okay? He didn't feel like he was running very fast during the test. He's so thin. He's like a boiled chicken. Wang Ling didn't say anything. He pretended he hadn't heard anything and simply ignored him. This person's muscles were pretty impressive, and he must have been very fierce when he worked out. But in fact, these muscles didn't mean much in actual combat. Having more muscles wasn't necessarily better. Excessive muscle training was very likely to cause them to block meridians and slow down the flow of spirit energy. Hence, it was more about muscle quality than quantity. Furthermore, it wasn't that Wang Ling didn't have muscles, it was just that they were hidden away. Are you mocking our class? Super Chen looked at this person. This was Shi Shuai from Elite Class 2, who was in the same class as Fang Xing. Furthermore, he was famous for being a contrarian. He really liked to bicker with people. That's right, I'm mocking him. I think I can run faster than this boiled chicken classmate. Shi Shuai chuckled. You want to fight? Super Chen wasn't convinced. He had long since disliked this Shi Shuai. Teacher Yi was also startled. How could they start quarreling in the middle of the relay race? Shi Shuai rolled up his sleeves. I, Shi Shuai, am not scared. When the 10 of us pass the baton, the total time is counted, but we can see the results of each person's relay. I'll definitely run faster than him. Shi Shuai pointed at Wang Ling. Look at this bro, he's so thin. One look and you can tell he's malnourished. The result of eating cheap snacks every day, like those, are seriously unhealthy. On the rostrum, Old Antique suddenly felt a little stabbed in the heart. What was wrong with spicy strips? Did the spicy strips provoke you? A regular limited edition spicy strip was also very expensive. Be careful. On the side, Fang Xing's expression instantly turned cold. Shi Shuai couldn't help but mutter, let's see who will make a fool of themselves in the end. Wang Ling still didn't say anything, but the expression on his face was clearly a lot gloomier than before. He glanced at Shi Shuai. At that moment, silence spoke louder than words. Although Wang Ling hadn't said a word, everyone's spines involuntarily twitched as they quivered. There's a kind of cold feeling. It was as if someone was glaring at him with murderous intent. From the rostrum, Ajwa had seen it very clearly. It was as if the whole school had been hit by a ghost. Headmaster Chen looked at the sky and couldn't help but rub his hands. What kind of weather is this? Why did the temperature drop so suddenly? Holy shit, what was going on? He was clearly a white-cut chicken that looked so weak that it could not even withstand a gust of wind. Why did that glance give him goosebumps? Shi Shuai couldn't figure it out no matter how he thought about it. Fang Xing didn't say a word, and just sighed with a faint smile as he patted classmate Shi Shuai on the shoulder. You're on your own. Shi Shuai was baffled by this reminder. Only Fang Xing and Ajwa knew that from the moment this classmate Shi Shuai had dissed crispy noodle snacks, he was already dead. Everyone stood on the track as the 10,000-meter relay officially began, and Shi Shuai happened to be the first runner. As he spoke, the referee raised his starting pistol. Everyone, take your places. Shi Shuai had already taken control of the heavy black steel sword, allowing it to float above his head. This sword was a lot heavier than the spirit swords he usually used for practice, and Shi Shuai couldn't help gritting his teeth. F***K. But now that things had come to this, he already had no way out. Since he had boasted just now, no matter what, he had to give it his all. At the very least, he couldn't lose to that white-cut chicken just now. Bang! A gunshot rang out. The robust student sure took a big stride forward like an arrow and dashed forward like a flying arrow. The black steel sword hovered steadily above his head and sprinted along with him. But it was very clear that because the black steel sword was too heavy, Shuai's speed wasn't up to his expectations. With just half a lap to go, he was already drenched in sweat. Shuai's previous top speed had been 33 meters per minute, and he had run 1 kilometer in a little over 30 seconds. Very quickly, Shuai handed over the baton. Super Chen was the second runner. After that, he rushed out on his sword at the speed of light, while Shuai couldn't help panting with his hands on his knees. He raised his head and looked at the results on the electronic panel next to him. 50 seconds? How could this be, right? It had to be that the black steel sword was too heavy. Since he only had 50 seconds, then the others definitely didn't have good results. Especially that white-cut chicken. Shuai glared at him fiercely. He completely ignored him. Very quickly, Super Chen came back with his sword and handed over the third runner to a boy from class 2. Unlike Shuai, Super Chen felt that this black steel sword wasn't as heavy as he had imagined. When he took over the baton, he didn't even break a sweat. At that moment, everyone's eyes were focused on the electronic panel. After the referee confirmed it, Super Chen's result was directly announced. 29 seconds. What the hell? How did he do it in 29 seconds? What the hell? How did I do it in 29 seconds? Super Chen and Shuai were both stupefied. Extraordinary performance, Super Chen. Teacher Yi was overjoyed and patted Super Chen on the shoulder like crazy. He couldn't help hugging him. Only Fang Xing stood silently on the side and smiled as if he had seen through everything. Classmate Wang Ling, can you help me out later? Wang Ling. Fang Xing knew that it had to be Wang Ling who had done something. That was why Super Chen had been able to finish the race so easily. Otherwise, no matter how extraordinary Super Chen's performance was, there was no way he could have run in such a heaven-defying time of 29 seconds. It was really too easy for Wang Ling to pull off a minor trick in a competition of this level. Fang Xing was the fourth runner, and he was standing in front of Wang Ling, who was in charge of the fifth. The third runner was actually average, and Shuai was sure that no matter how bad he was, he would definitely be a lot faster than this person. When the third runner handed over the baton, all the teachers and students in the school almost subconsciously turned to the electronic panel in the field. The referee announced the result. 35 seconds. Everyone cried out in surprise. Shuai. It was very obvious that Wang Ling had also cast a minor spell on this boy to lighten his body. However, the 50 seconds Shuai had run just now were in fact Shuai's true result. Wang Ling hadn't done anything to it. After all, the school's honor was at stake in the sports meets results, and Wang Ling felt that it wasn't worth it to deliberately cast a negative spell to trip Shuai up. At worst, he wouldn't help him. Wang Ling understood that as long as he helped other people improve their results, in the end, Shuai would still be the one making a fool of himself, if he didn't teach this kind of contrarian a lesson. Chapter 554. In that instant, Shuai suddenly regretted it a little. He had boasted before the start of the relay race, but never in his wildest dreams had he thought that there would actually be 3 people with better times than him in a row. Furthermore, they were more than 10 seconds ahead of him. How could this be? Shuai felt hurt, as if his confidence had suffered a blow. But before Shuai could finish lamenting, Fang Xing ran back like a bolt of lightning and smoothly handed over the baton to Shuai. Shuai was completely stunned as he stared blankly at Fang Xing. Didn't you just receive the baton? That was too fast. Hands on his waist, Fang Xing smiled at him. That's right, it's already over. Shuai. On the other side, the referee announced the results. Fang Xing, 25 seconds. Shuai almost spat blood. Fang Xing's time was double his. Even with such a heavy black steel sword, Fang Xing could actually run at a speed of 40 meters per second. Was he even human? Looking at the results, Super Chen couldn't help sighing in his heart at Fang Xing's prowess. To be honest, he had actually been a little disgusted with Fang Xing in the beginning. He felt that this person was like the sun wherever he went, and had a completely opposite personality from Wang Ling, which was especially eye-catching. At the very beginning, Super Chen admitted that he had been a little jealous. But after straightening out his attitude, Super Chen summed up Fang Xing as, "You can't give up on this person. Sometimes, when you really couldn't beat someone, you had to admit it, and then make up your mind to work hard." There was no point in being jealous and making sour remarks. Ever since he had taken Fang Xing seriously, Super Chen's attitude toward him had been pure envy. This person's skin was as good as a girl's, his figure was like a male model's, he was good at studying and sports, too rare. He was simply a perfect combination of the strengths of both sexes. This student Fang Xing is a new transfer student, but his performance has always been very good. On the rostrum, Headmaster Chen was full of praise for Fang Xing. He's pretty awesome. Juan nodded symbolically, so he wasn't as excited as Headmaster Chen at Fang Xing's outstanding performance. Instead, he just stared intently at Wang Ling, who was sprinting on the track. This was the first time he had seen his Shifu run. It was really too cool. As he ran, his bangs parted to reveal Wang Ling's smooth little face, which made Ajur extremely excited. Shifu was so handsome. In the end, Wang Ling's fifth leg time was 32 seconds. Of course, he had deliberately controlled this score. It wasn't too high, but it wasn't too low either. Most importantly, this result was enough to slap the face of Shi Shuai, who had boasted before. When the results were announced, Wang Ling didn't say a word and only lifted his sweatshirt to wipe the sweat off his face. Aj's breathing grew heavier when he saw this, and he couldn't help secretly giving him a thumbs up, as expected of Shifu. These abdominal muscles were awesome. In fact, even with the help of the Tao Talisman, restraining the primordial qi was physically taxing for him, and it wasn't easy to restrain it. When he exercised intensely in particular, the primordial qi's concentration would rise, and Wang Ling would need to actively circulate an equal amount of spirit energy to suppress and neutralize it. It was like a taut nerve that couldn't be relaxed at all. When he had received Fang Xing's blow just now, he had been afraid that he wouldn't be able to hold on and release the primordial qi. Otherwise, how could a kilometer take 33 seconds? It was just a blink of an eye. Controlling the score was really too difficult. Sighing in his heart, Wang Ling silently walked over to the pile of coats on the lawn, picked them up, and put them on. Suddenly, he noticed that the gazes of the people around him seemed a little off. Why were they all staring at him? When he pulled up the zipper of his coat, Super Chen and Fang Xing came over. Super Chen couldn't help praising him. "Not bad, Wang Ling, you're not a completely white-cut chicken." "Wang Ling?" Fang Xing smiled slightly. "What he means is that your abs aren't bad." Super Chen spoke very loudly, and the nickname white-cut chicken made Wang Ling subconsciously turn his head to look at Shi Shuai. Classmate Shi Shuai was already covering his face in shame. Furthermore, Wang Ling noticed that although Shi Shuai was covering his face with his hands, his gaze was still sneaking out between his fingers to quietly size him up. Shi Shuai was now very regretful. For some reason, he felt that this white-cut chicken classmate who had inadvertently shown off his abs just now was actually a little handsome. Should he go and apologize to her? Shi Shuai was conflicted in his heart. In the end, the total time taken for number 60 High's 10-person relay race was 5 minutes and 43 seconds, for a total of 343 seconds. In the eyes of the 3 referees who were present, this result was already pretty heaven-defying. They had been to Prime Elevation High School and Reliance High School before, both of which were key city high schools, but the best time so far was 6 minutes and 10 seconds, which was only 370 seconds. Number 60 High. Was it really just an ordinary high school? The 3 referees stared blankly at the results. Prime Elevation High School and Reliance High School were both key city high schools. The training venues of key city high schools were much more luxurious than the current number 60 high school, and the quality of the students was clearly better. However, the 3 referees had to admit that the grade 1 students of number 60 high school this time were indeed a little amazing. Congratulations, Teacher Yi. Your results are really outstanding this time. One by one, the 3 referees congratulated Teacher Yi, who was in charge of all the events this time. We were just lucky. Teacher Yi was grinning from ear to ear. However, are our results really that good? The corners of the three referees' mouths twitched in unison. A result of 343 seconds. They were already F***King qualified for the city team. And this was just a group of grade 1 students. What would happen when they were grade 3 students? We've already tested at Prime Elevation High School and Reliance High School, and the results of these two key city high schools are currently lower than number 60 high schools. Tomorrow, we'll test at Building Materials High School, God Vision High School, and number 59 High School. All in all, number 60 High School has a very good chance of winning this event this time. One of the experienced referees analyzed. The first was number 60 High's neighbor, number 59 High School. The headmasters of the two schools were from the same school, and both schools were currently on the waiting list for the key high schools in the city. However, judging from the quality of this year's students, the chances of number 59 high school students surpassing number 60 high school in their test scores were actually quite slim. On the other hand, Building Materials High School was a private high school for nobles, which had been invested in by Lin Sikong, the father of Lin Xiaozong, a famous second-generation rich kid in the cultivation circle. God Vision High School was a private high school built by the Xiao clan. The overall strength of the two schools was about the same. However, looking at the results of previous district sports meets, these two schools still couldn't compare with Prime Elevation High School and Reliance High School, which was run by Patriarch Reliance, the sect leader of Reliance sect. So, number 60 high school had a very good chance of winning this time. At the school gate, Headmaster Chen and Director Shi saw the three referees off. One of the old referees suddenly said, "Headmaster Chen, if it's convenient, you can prepare your acceptance speech for the 10-person 10,000-meter relay event in advance. The competition isn't over yet, isn't that a bad idea?" Headmaster Chen said, "I've been a referee for decades. The results of the grade 1 students at number 60 high school this time have already broken the record for decades." The old referee said, "In your acceptance speech, I hope that Headmaster Chen will give a good account of your experience in training students." "What experience?" "It's all because the children in this year's competition are talented." Headmaster Chen smiled slightly. "As teachers, we should always give encouragement first. Only encouragement can bring out a child's potential to the greatest extent. Do you know Qin Mu, the president of our Huaxiu Disabled Aid Association?" The old referee nodded. "Of course I've heard of him." Qin Mu, the president of the Disabled Aid Association, was too famous. Before becoming president of the foundation, this President Qin had been a national first-class athlete who had won gold medals in dozens of events, and was famous all over the world for his hegemonic body. Actually, in our cultivation circle, there's no such thing as an hegemonic body. President Qin's hegemonic body came about by chance. The main reason was that President Qin met an expert when he was a child. The old referee, "An expert?" "That's right." Headmaster Chen nodded and said, "There was someone called Profound Saint Tyrannical Song who lied to him, saying that he had an amazing aptitude, and that he was definitely a rare martial arts genius in the cultivation world, a natural hegemonic body." Hearing this, the three referees were startled. And then? Headmaster Chen, he believed it. Chapter 555. When Wang Ling returned in the evening, he saw Loopy Toad's tight yellow exercise clothes in the bamboo basket in the garden. Loopy Toad had been cultivating diligently these 2 days, and it had become more and more familiar with the basic dog skills that Little Silver had given it previously as it continued to cultivate them day by day. When Wang Ling pushed the door open, he saw Loopy Toad and Sheep, one human and one dog, lying on the ground in the same position, as if they had completely melted into the ground. "Wang Ling, what were they doing?" Loopy Toad sighed. "Cultivation is so tiring, I'm probably already a useless dog," Sheep sighed. "Being a training partner is so tiring, and I even got rubbed today. I'm probably already a useless sheep." Previously, Wang Ling had learned that the basic dog skills that Loopy Toad was currently cultivating were things that Little Silver had stolen from Dog Saint's depository of Buddhist texts. After all, this was a technique that Dog Saint had created himself, so cultivating it would definitely be difficult. The first two forms were level 4, which Loopy Toad could digest on its own. It was just that the last 5 forms might be a little more difficult to understand. Wang Ling thought that he would take some time to help Loopy Toad improve it a little over the next few days. To be honest, this body technique spirit technique that Dog Saint had created was a little amazing. The levels of body techniques were different from those of normal spells because they could be divided into many forms. Loopy Toad's basic dog skills had 7 forms in total. The first 2 forms were level 4 and the last 5 forms were level 5. If Loopy Toad could master all 7 forms and use them in one go, its power wouldn't be inferior to a grade 8 spell. Although Loopy Toad looked very tired as it lay on the ground, Wang Ling could clearly feel that its spirit was indeed different from before. When all was said and done, this was a spirit technique that Dog Saint had created by combining the characteristics of canine spirit beasts. It was naturally designed for dogs, and the meridians that spirit energy flowed through were also based on the meridians in a spirit dog's body. After repeated practice, the compatibility between Loopy Toad's soul and body had clearly improved. After practicing the basic dog skills, the meridians that were originally blocked were obviously much smoother. But Wang Ling remembered that Little Silver had told him last time that there was something to take note of when cultivating the basic dog skills, but after all, it had been many years. Little Silver still hadn't recalled what it was. But judging from Loopy Toad's current cultivation results, it seemed that cultivating the basic dog skills was going very smoothly and it hadn't run into any other problems. The midterm exams were already over, and the sports meet was already halfway done. Thursday was the day of the medicine ball and the spirit beast battle, which coincided with each other. After the sports meet was over, Wang Ling felt that his days would be a little peaceful. It had been 13 weeks since school had started, and he had already sent so many people to prison. Wang Ling felt very tired. This year's batch of Year 1 students was not too peaceful. The point was that even he himself didn't know how many chapters he still had before he could graduate. When he opened the door, he saw someone lying on his bed with a pleased expression on his face. "Yo, Lingzi, you're back." "Wang Ling? Why was this guy here?" Loopy Toad followed behind him with a surprised expression. "Didn't you say last time that old Chi wouldn't let you out?" Wang Ming quickly replied, "That's right. But I haven't seen my brother for a day, and I miss him dearly. A day apart feels like 3 years. Wang Ling and Loopy Toad. Wang Ming sat up cross-legged. "Haven't you noticed that I'm different today?" Wang Ling swept a careful look over Wang Ming, then stretched out his hand to touch him, only to find that his hand had directly passed through Wang Ming's body. "Projection?" Wang Ling raised his eyebrows. "This is remote projection technology." Wang Ming crossed his arms and said very proudly, "Actually, I've been studying it since old Chi issued the travel restriction last time. This projection technology is controlled by my mastermind, and it currently has a range that covers all of Songhai City. The main thing is that the projection chip I made last time was too small. After all, this is my first experiment, and I don't know if it will work." "It can cover such a long range?" Loopy Toad was also surprised. "All of Songhai City? Then you can go wherever you want." Wang Ming said quietly, "You should know about our country's Heavenly E-satellite, right? When we sent people to replace parts of the satellite a few years ago, I implanted my little chip into one of them." Loopy Toad, "Wang Ling, it's all thanks to this satellite that we can cover such a long range." Wang Ming's projected body floated in the air. "Don't think that I looked like I was lying on a bed just now, but I was actually floating. I wasn't able to touch anything in my projected state, so I was a little hurt." The corners of Loopy Toad's mouth twitched. "You still want to touch something? It's not impossible." Wang Ming said, "Our country's magic treasure projection technology is already very advanced. It won't be long before we can use magic treasures to connect with the nervous perception of the body, and combine a virtual projection with spirit power molecules to materialize a part of the body. In our previous experiments, we've already successfully materialized a projected hand, but this technology is still in the testing stage." Loopy Toad had just asked a question, but hadn't expected Wang Ming to go on and on. For a fanatical scientist, Any progress in scientific research would make them more and more excited the more they talked about it. Father and Mother Wang didn't know about Wang Ming's projection today, because Wang Ming had directly projected himself into Wang Ling's bedroom in the Wang family's small villa. This technology was very powerful. If it really was as Wang Ming said, then in theory, as long as Wang Ming wanted to, he could use a clone to go anywhere in Songhai City. But there were risks in doing so. If someone discovered that Wang Ming's body was just a projection, it would definitely be widely reported, and Wang Ming was well aware of this. Thus, he wouldn't use this remote projection spell so easily. Wang Ling stared at Wang Ming's realistic projection and couldn't help asking telepathically, "Did you come here today to show off your projection?" "Oh, not really." Wang Ming curled his lips slightly and smiled. "Apart from that, there's something else I want to tell you in person. Didn't you ask me to track down the address of an informant before? Did you find it?" Wang Ling was very curious. That person is pretty smart. In order to hide his coordinates, he added several layers of defense. An average person really wouldn't be able to crack it. This time, I had to use the Heavenly E-satellite's big data back-end calculations to successfully locate him. Wang Ming spread his hands. He looked at Wang Ling and said seriously, "This person isn't easy to deal with. Looking at his skills, apart from Old Chi, he's probably the most powerful opponent I've met so far. If it's really as grenade-throwing Senior Immortal said, and this person knows so much about the past, I'm afraid he's also a hidden big shot. Lingzi, you have to be very careful." Wang Ling frowned. "Do you have a specific location?" Loopy Toad asked on the side. Wang Ming nodded. "I tracked down all the information this person posted online, and in the end, I got a duplicate location. What's interesting is that this person posts at a fixed location every time, and even at a fixed time. He's obviously very confident in his defense and feels that no one can track him down. The point is that you and Lingzi are very familiar with this person's location." Loopy Toad, where exactly? Chapter 556. Number 60 High School again? The corner of Loopy Toad's eye twitched fiercely when it heard Wang Ming's answer. Wait a minute. Why was it again? Loopy Toad recalled the ridicule it had heard when it was still at Number 60 High School. Number 60 High School is as magical as Bright Longevity Village. It was indeed magical. It could almost be said that big shots had gathered, a nascent soul gatekeeper, a pioneer teacher Pan, a terrifying librarian, mother one of the dark cuisine world, old antique who was an epic-level assassin, and now there was a big shot expert suspected of being a monkey coder. However, who is this person's true identity? This person releases breaking news at a fixed time each week. If there's news, he'll choose to release it every Thursday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and he's located in your school's computer room. From what we know so far, this person should be a student or teacher at your school. Wang Ming made his own deduction. Also, I'm certain that this person uses the same computer every time. Every Thursday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon? Wang Ling cupped his chin in his hand as he thought about it. That happened to be the time for his computer class. But the arrangement of the computer class was a little different. It rotated on odd and even weeks, while the elite classes only had computer classes on 2 weeks. Odd weeks were when the regular classes used the computer room. That was to say, there were 4 classes in total who could use the computer room at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Thursday, 2 regular classes and 2 elite classes. Altogether, more than 90 students were suspects. Furthermore, they couldn't completely rule out the 4 computer teachers. After all, with Old Antique as an example, what if the computer teacher was also a big shot? In addition to testing out my remote projection technology, I came here today to talk about this. In any case, Lingzi, you have to be careful. I have a feeling that this person isn't here with good intentions, said Wang Ming. He had a strong intuition, which he had discovered when he had detected the specific location of this mysterious informant. But he still couldn't say whether this informant was friend or foe, but he still had to warn Wang Ling to be careful. But strangely, back when Wang Ling had first started school, Wang Ming had investigated the identities of everyone in senior grade 1. Except for the daughter of Huaguo Water Curtain Group, the rest of them actually had average family backgrounds. If this informant big shot really was one of Wang Ling's classmates, then it was even more proof that this person was so shrewd that people had to be on guard against him. Back then, he had asked old Shi to use the official database to check the personal information of this cohort of Senior 1 students. Their names, heights, genders, files dating back to kindergarten. Wang Ming went through them one by one and didn't find anyone particularly strange at all. Alright, there is one. Wang Ming remembered. He remembered that in Wang Ling's class, there was someone called Hirogua. This person had a lot of relatives. Other than that, everything else was quite normal. Wang Ming frowned as he pondered this, when Wang Ling suddenly noticed a change in him. Not good. Wang Ling, ? Loopy Toad, what? I have to go back first. Wang Ming raised his head. My original body received news that old Qi is in the hospital. President Qi is in the hospital? The corner of Loopy Toad's eye twitched, and it was immediately alarmed. Isn't President Qi one of the 10 generals? The 10 generals were all true immortals. How could they be in the hospital? Wang Ming didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He ate Jai Yin's dragon pork chop, Wang Ling and Loopy Toad. I clearly told him before, if he wants to eat Jai Yin's dragon pork chop, he has to use spirit energy to protect his stomach. Wang Ming dropped his forehead into his hand. Jai Yin's pork chop can already be considered a weapon of mass destruction. Didn't you say last time that President Qi banned Jai Yin from cooking it in the lab? Loopy Toad asked. Indeed, I didn't cook it in the laboratory. This time, Jai Yin brought it back to the laboratory after cooking it outside. Moreover, after Auntie's guidance last time, the pork chops that Jai Yin fried this time actually looked very good. It's no longer black, but golden yellow. The color is very attractive, and it doesn't look greasy at all. You didn't eat it? It's mainly because I was injured too deeply last time, and I've been eating porridge for the last 2 days to nourish my stomach. Good thing I didn't eat it. Wang Ming broke out in a sweat. Otherwise, the next time you see me, I might already be an urn, being smashed into a box by friendly forces. Wang Ling and Loopy Toad, but it looks pretty good, so it should taste pretty good, right? Loopy Toad was a little puzzled. Is Miss Jai really that lethal? Wang Ming had a "you don't understand" expression on his face. You don't know, that's the scariest thing. In the beginning, no matter what Jai Yin made, the food was always black and no one dared to eat it. Now that she had gone outside to find a teacher and asked the auntie for some advice, the food that Jai Yin made now didn't look like a problem at all. It looks like it's being served out of a restaurant. Speaking up to this point, Wang Ming couldn't help feeling some lingering fear. Initially, Jai Yin's food didn't look edible at first glance. Now, Jai Yin's food was like a mushroom. It looked beautiful, but it was even more poisonous. Furthermore, Wang Ming had also noticed a pattern. The better the end product of Jai Yin's food looks, the more inedible it is. To be able to send a true immortal to the hospital after eating it, this thing is already a chemical weapon. Wang Ling and Loopy Toad. It was July 19th on Wednesday in the 13th week of the semester. When he left the house in the morning, Wang Ling received a text message from Wang Ming. President Qi, who had been beaten up by friendly forces Jai Yin, was fine after having his stomach pumped in the hospital. Yesterday, it was actually President Qi who had been careless and had taken a bite when he wasn't prepared at all after this incident. President Qi could be said to have learned a lesson. From now on, no matter how delicious Jai Yin's food looked, he couldn't eat it. Oh no, there would be no from now on. Jai Yin was now banned from cooking anywhere. Listening to Wang Ming, Jai Yin's food had already been classified as a prohibited chemical poison by Huaxiao Nation's Cultivation Academy of Science. Furthermore, its lethality had already reached level 9, second only to the heavenly E-satellite's E-bomb from heaven, which had reached level 10. When all was said and done, the pupil had surpassed the master. In some sense, Wang Ling felt that Jai Yin was much scarier than Mother Wan. At the very least, Mother Wan's food wouldn't make a true immortal faint from eating it. When Wang Ling arrived in class and handed in his homework, he started to flip through his history book. The first class on Wednesday morning was Old Antiques Theory of History class. Today's topic, which Wang Ling was very interested in, was the gate between worlds. Chapter 557. When he had arrived in class in the morning, he had actually heard some gossip about Old Antique breaking up with his girlfriend. Everyone knew who Old Antique was. Back when he had led everyone to the Spirit Sword exchange meet at number 59 high school, he had fallen in love with Director Xie, the school's director of teaching. This news had spread very quickly. It was said that Old Antique and Director Xie had just broken up yesterday, and Dopeigua had already heard it firsthand. But this time, it wasn't one of Dopeigua's uncles who had told him, but that delinquent senior, He Buffing, who was determined to study hard at number 59 high school. As number 60 high school's gossip expert, Dopeigua didn't just have an uncle as a resource, he was also a famous social butterfly outside the school. Basically, it didn't take long for anyone who had met Dopeigua to become familiar with each other. Then, Dopeigua would turn them into intelligence traffickers and pull them into his personal gossip group. It was human nature to be nosy, and master of Dopey's strength lay in the fact that not only did he like to gossip, but he also had the ability to drag other people along with him. This was the scariest thing. A lot of people in class didn't know Old Antique's real identity and felt that this was just his first love, so it had to be a huge blow to him. Even Lotus Sun, who had personally witnessed Old Antique kill a golden core killer with a piece of chalk at the start of the semester, had only thought that Old Antique wasn't ordinary. But his identity as gorgeous itinerant, in grade 1, class 3, Wang Ling was the only one who knew. Back when Old Antique had been in his prime, he had been a famous little fresh meat in the assassin circle, and who knew how many people had designs on him, but Wang Ling felt that he was still young when it came to relationships, so it wasn't good for him to say too much. Perhaps Old Antique had been right to end his relationship. After all, given gorgeous itinerant's identity, Director Xie was just a weak woman. When Old Antique came to class, he found that it was strangely quiet and no one was talking. Everyone in class thought that Old Antique would be in a very low mood today, but who knew that he would be as if nothing had happened. As usual, he stood on the dais with a bag of spicy strips and a wide smile on his face. Students, let's get ready for class. Everyone, flip to section 5. Modern History. Today, we'll talk about the gate between worlds. Old Antique rubbed his hands together. He hadn't brought a book or prepared a PowerPoint. He had already committed these things to memory. Outstanding teachers could basically teach without books when they were completely familiar with the teaching materials. Everyone, stare, Old Antique. Students, if you have something to say it nicely. Don't stare at me, I'm very shy. Everyone continued to stare. Old Antique wasn't a fool. Combined with the uncharacteristic silence in the classroom when he had entered, he guessed that the matter of him and Director Xie's breakup at number 59 high school had most likely come to light. After all, the students of both schools knew that they had been together back then. Now that they were separated, this gossip would naturally spread. In fact, Old Antique had long since anticipated this, but the only thing he hadn't expected was that this gossip would spread a little too quickly. He had broken up with Xie Huilan yesterday afternoon, but it seemed like the whole world knew this morning. No wonder even the old man who sold egg pancakes at the school gate had looked at him strangely this morning. Furthermore, the old man had specially cracked an extra egg in his pancake and added a piece of tenderloin covered in coffee-colored sweet sauce. Old Antique now finally understood the meaning of this. It turned out that this meant tenderloin, chicken flying, and egg breaking. Old Antique took out a spicy strip and put it in his mouth. I believe that all of you already know, that's right. They broke up. There was no point in hiding it. In any case, since everyone already knew, Old Antique felt that he might as well say it out loud and then go to class in peace. Why did you break up? Dopeigua already couldn't hold back his desire to gossip. Work reasons as well as personal reasons, but don't worry, we broke up peacefully. This breakup won't affect the friendship between number 59 high school and number 60 high school. Speaking up to this point, Old Antique couldn't help spreading his hands. Actually, it's still because I'm a little playful, a girlfriend or something isn't very suitable for me. I probably won't have one in this lifetime, and can only rely on my left and right hands to make a living. Everyone, Old Antique raised his eyebrows. This topic was already over, and he clearly didn't want to continue. Cough, cough. Next, let's officially start class. Returning to the topic of class, Old Antique said with a serious expression, I believe that everyone has already come into contact with information on the gate between worlds from various sources. Because the gate between worlds descended irregularly in the past, it caused our country a lot of losses and disasters. But currently, we already have fairly sophisticated monitoring equipment that can detect fluctuations in the gate's descent in advance. Our country is already leading the world in terms of prevention and monitoring measures in this area. The gate between worlds doesn't just descend in our country? At that moment, Little Peanut couldn't help asking. Of course. Old Antique nodded. The coordinates of the gate between worlds' descent are random. There are records of it appearing not only in our country, but also abroad. Although it's rarely descended, it's not like it doesn't happen. As everyone knows, the gate between worlds connects to the demon world, and there are demon beasts, demon kings, and even demon godlords who rule over several major domains of the demon race. But who knows that above demon gods, there actually exists an absolute ruler of the demon race. Absolute ruler of the demon race. Everyone was shocked. Many of them, including Wang Ling, had heard a lot about the gate between worlds when they were very young. To everyone's knowledge, demon gods were already the rulers of the demon world. A demon god ruled over a demon territory, and their rank was equivalent to that of a head of state in the human cultivation world. This was the first time they had heard of the concept of absolute ruler. It's normal that you haven't heard of this concept before. After all, you'll only come into contact with historical knowledge after you enter university, and it's actually still a little far off at this stage. I'll just say a little. This demon ruler is also called Demon Saint. But Demon Saint has never appeared in any battle between the human race and the demon world until now. So, does Demon Saint really exist? Someone started to question. No, Demon Saint does indeed exist. We extracted this information from the memories of demon gods who died in battle. From the memories of demon gods, we can see that Demon Saint is extremely powerful, but until now, we don't know why Demon Saint chose not to take action during the war and instead stayed hidden. Old Antique looked a little nostalgic as he said, currently, our country actually has very limited information on Demon Saint. But there are 3 things that we can be sure of. First, Demon Saint does exist. Second, the position of Demon Saint can be inherited, and it's hereditary. Currently, Demon Saint has already been succeeded to the 2nd generation. Third, from the memories of demon gods, we can see that the current Demon Saint's true identity is a merman. We also call him 2nd generation merman. Chapter 558. The legend of Demon Saint had actually been around for a long time, but as Old Antique had said, this was knowledge that could only be learned in advanced university textbooks. Most high school students had never come into contact with it. Demon Saint did indeed exist. According to Old Antique, after repelling the demon race army back then, General E and the other 10 founding generals had begun to plot a plan to capture a demon god alive. Capturing a demon god alive was far more difficult than directly killing it. They had learned about Demon Saint from the 3 demon gods who had been captured alive back then. Not long after their memories had been extracted, however, the 3 demon gods had started to perish right under everyone's noses, and in the end had been reduced to ashes. Are these demon gods all dead? Listening to Old Antique's story, the people in class didn't quite understand. Maybe they're dead, maybe they're still alive. The only thing we can be sure of is that Demon Saint is behind all of this, Old Antique said with a frown. Old Antique frowned and said, ever since the human world and the demon world were connected through the gate between worlds, human cultivators have been studying the demon race. The source of their power is different from our spirit chi, and they rely on the demon chi in the demon world to cast any spells. It's precisely because the composition of their power source is different from ours that the way the demon race inherits power is definitely different from that of real human cultivators. The so-called demon gods are just subordinates appointed by Demon Saint, the biggest ruler of the demon race. As long as they find a suitable successor, Demon Saint can create a god in his own way. Is this the inheritance of Tao? Little Peanut asked again. A little like it, but there's a difference. In order to continue their Tao hearts for a long time, the Almighties of the past would choose to take in disciples and pass on their lifelong knowledge to their disciples so that they could inherit their mantle. By personally passing on the teachings and imbuing the body with the source of their power, the inheritors of the Tao can greatly shorten the time it takes for them to cultivate, but a true inheritance of Tao isn't something that can be accomplished overnight. Speaking up to this point, Old Antique was silent. In fact, there was another rather special situation that he hadn't mentioned. That was Immortal Shi Pai. Directly passing on his power to his children in the form of a new life was also a special method of inheritance of Tao. However, the success rate was very low in general, and one needed to pay attention to some elements that were compatible with yin and yang. Moreover, those who chose this method to pass on their legacy would eventually die of exhaustion. Thus, Feng Xing was a special case, but this kind of special case was really too rare. The reason why Immortal Shi Pai had been able to succeed was largely because he was Feng Xing's father and mother. There was no need to pay attention to the theory of yin and yang compatibility at all. Humans were born with a high degree of yin and yang compatibility, just like the previous incident with the old devil. That old devil took advantage of the impatient nature of many cultivators and tricked them into searching for the stone ghost mask. In the name of inheriting the orthodoxy, he found a body for himself and seized the opportunity to possess it. Old Antique smiled. So students, if you come across something good in the future where you can inherit a Taoist orthodoxy, please do register with the official Taoist Orthodoxy Inheritance Organization. But basically, the probability of encountering such a good thing is not high. Why? Finding disciples now is different from the past. In the past, as long as one was talented, there was a possibility of catching the eye of a big shot. But now, with the continuous advancement of science in the cultivation world, it can be said that the big shot's horizons are getting higher and higher. It's not enough to just be talented, you also have to be able to speak, be able to handle matters, and be able to withstand tests of character. If you're told to serve tea, you'll serve tea, and you'll come and go at your beck and call. You can be a waiter for hundreds of years and still have no complaints. Isn't it popular to enter a family tree now? This is actually one of the ways to find a successor to the Taoist orthodoxy. Old Antique's words carried a hint of ridicule. Although his tone sounded relaxed, Wang Ling noticed that a lot of people in class were lost in deep thought. When they were young, a lot of people had probably fantasized about what it would be like to wake up one day and suddenly possess the formidable power that they had always dreamed of. Inheriting a Taoist orthodoxy through the official channels was indeed a way to gain strength in a short period of time, but it was often very difficult to realize. Today, you could enter someone else's family tree and become a senior disciple, but as long as your Shifu was even the slightest bit dissatisfied, you could be directly removed from the family tree in a matter of minutes. Should he be a piece of miserable pork, or should he become a thinking reed? This is a question worth pondering. Therefore, the inheritance of orthodoxy was not as glamorous as it seemed. There was no such thing as a free lunch in this world. Sometimes, the truth behind an event was much more complicated than it seemed. Wang Ling stared at the relaxed expression on Old Antique's face. He realized that this was one of Old Antique's great charms when he was teaching. He could inadvertently make the students think a lot. Perhaps he sensed that the atmosphere in the classroom was a little serious. Old Antique rubbed the back of his head and said with a smile, "Of course, if I were taking in disciples, I wouldn't have so many requirements. If I want to accept a disciple, first of all, he must pass the test of history. He must know a lot of gossip, and secondly, he must know how to play." Dopey suddenly raised his hand in excitement. Teacher, what do you think of me?" Old Antique looked at him. "Do you eat spicy strips?" Dopey, "No." Old Antique smiled all over his face. "I confirmed with my eyes that you're not the person I'm looking for." Dopey, "Everyone." Today was Wednesday, which happened to be the day when Loopy Toad and Fatty Luo had made an appointment to pick up the custom-made magic treasure. Because Fatty Luo never used chat software, Loopy Toad didn't even know what he had designed this custom-made magic treasure. The Bone King had been left behind by poor Dog Saint, so it could be said that it was quite rare. If it messed up the refinement process, would Dog Saint's hot pot lid collapse? Because Sheep had already led the way last time, Loopy Toad went on its own this time. Boundless Road was a street for refining weapons. Fatty Luo's metal shop wasn't too conspicuous, but it was a rare 5-star premium shop on the Cultivation Review Network on Boundless Road. When it reached the shop entrance, Loopy Toad was still wondering what kind of magic treasure Fatty Luo would refine the Bone King into. When he entered, Fatty Luo saw Loopy Toad's figure and nodded tacitly. "Don't move, I'll go get the thing." After saying that, he turned around and went to the refining time chamber at the back of the shop to get the thing. A few minutes later, Fatty Luo came out with a box in his hands and gently placed it in front of Loopy Toad. "Brother Dog, this is the magic weapon you refined from your Bone King. It's a third-class holy weapon, but there's still a lot of room for improvement. If we can find the corresponding materials later on, we can continue to refine it into a second-class or even first-class weapon." "Third class? Not bad." Loopy Toad's eyes lit up. After all, it had been refined in such a short time. It didn't have too many expectations for its grade. It was fine as long as it was convenient. Furthermore, the most important thing was that there was still room for improvement in the Bone King. Fatty Luo crossed his arms and was very pleased with himself. "Brother Dog, open it and take a look. I'm very satisfied with this work." Loopy Toad opened the box, and then it saw a lustrous green light reflected from the box. Loopy Toad stared at the light, its expression a little absent-minded. It understood this principle. As the main material in the refining process, the Bone King could indeed be affected by other supplementary materials, which could cause the finished product to change color slightly. But why? Chapter 559. Could it be that it was inextricably linked to green for the rest of its life? At the very beginning, Loopy Toad had refused in its heart, but after it calmed down and carefully sized up the refined Bone King, it realized that it was in fact quite beautiful on the outside. It wasn't a pure green, but rather a green with a hint of white. It was a little like jade, and the more it looked at it, the more pleasing it seemed to the eye. The refined Bone King already didn't have any trace of a broken bone. After being polished, it seemed to be a little thinner than the original material, but more compact. If it had to describe it, it looked a little like the jade dog beating stick that Loopy Toad had read in martial arts novels before. "It looks pretty good," Loopy Toad said, "but will it be very brittle?" "Hee, this is a third-class holy weapon, how brittle can it be?" As he waved his palm leaf fan, Fatty Luo took out a long black steel knife from the shelf on the side. "This is a magic weapon for testing, let me show you." As soon as he said this, before Loopy Toad could react, Fatty Luo's saber had already fallen. There was a soft bang as the Bone King reflected a green spirit light, and the black steel saber was actually directly split in two. This Bone King might not be the most lethal, but it's very tough. Furthermore, it's very adaptable and can be used flexibly in various situations. "Its appearance can change at will," Fatty Luo said. "You can transform as you please?" Loopy Toad was blank. This was probably a magic weapon's characteristic, but this was the first time it had heard of it. For example, the Wuji umbrella of the Demon Hunters Association's President Chong Bai had the space ability. The heaven-cleaving sword that evil sword god had obtained from his Shifu, sword Immortal Fan Rui, had the chaos ability. The brilliant victory sword in grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's hand had the absolute defense ability. The Lord Jinka under Little Masterling had the power ability. But what on earth was this ability to change at will? It's a little troublesome to explain, but it can actually be classified as a type of space ability, but it's a very special one that's different from the common spatial attribute like space transfer. The Bone King in your hand right now can combine with the spatial environment to achieve free transformation, to become what you want. Actually, this thing was a little complicated to explain, so Fatty Luo decided to just do it. He held the Bone King and injected spiritual power into it. He shouted, "Sword, come." Then, Loopy Toad saw green spirit energy emerge from the Bone King, and it actually turned into a jade longsword in Fatty Luo's hand. You can do that? Loopy Toad was stunned. After the demonstration, Fatty Luo threw the Bone King into Loopy Toad's paw. Yes, this is what it means to do as one pleases. Fatty Luo said, if it's used well, this Dog Saint's bone is an extremely powerful magic tool. It can be used to attack and defend. Doing as he pleased was a rare trait. But as you can see, the process of transformation takes time. The more complicated the shape, the longer it takes. This requires more practice. Thinking up to this point, Fatty Luo said, have you ever thought about what kind of artifact spirit it will be when your compatibility with the Bone King increases and you give birth to an artifact spirit? Loopy Toad, I just hope that it won't be green. Fatty Luo, I don't know if it's green or not, but since this Bone King was made from Dog Saint's bone, there's an 80% chance that the artifact spirit will be a dog. Loopy Toad, it doesn't matter if it's a dog, there are a lot of Lolitas in our dog circle now. Lolitas? Fatty Luo broke out in a sweat. But generally speaking, an artifact spirit's appearance was formed after a long period of contact between the magic weapon and its owner. Usually, the appearance and temperament of the artifact spirit would be based on its owner's wishes, and there wouldn't be too much of a difference. Of course, there was a very small chance that it would be the complete opposite of its owner's wishes. For example, Dog 2 currently hoped that its artifact spirit would be a dog with a Lolitas, so there was a very small chance that it would be a muscular bro dog. Loopy Toad nodded and mentioned Wei Ji. That's right, don't I have a pet trainer friend? After getting to know him, I actually learned a lot about the dog circle in private. Fatty Luo, Loopy Toad spread its paws. In our spirit dog circle, there's a little radish dog who made a lot of money off of a shit-shoveling officer called Paladin. He plays chicken with him every day. Fatty Luo, little radish dog? Loopy Toad nodded. That's right. It's a little radish dog. Aren't little puppies and wolf puppies popular now? Little radish dogs are also one of them. Fatty Luo suddenly felt that his knowledge had increased. Loopy Toad successfully took the Bone King from Fatty Luo, and the whole process didn't take long. In Fatty Luo's shop just now, Loopy Toad had already used its dog blood on the Bone King to bind it to its owner. For the rest of the day, Loopy Toad decided to go back and refine its basic dog skills, as well as study how to use the Bone King. Tomorrow, Thursday, was the day of the Spirit Beast Battle Royale. Since it had obtained the Bone King, Loopy Toad decided to test the Bone King's combat value in actual combat. Actual combat experience was often very important. Of course, the Spirit Beast Battle Royale tomorrow was actually just a game for Loopy Toad. It had to save its real energy for the battle when it returned to the clan. Friday. Loopy Toad had already decided on a time. The time limit for its prophetic dream was up, and it had to go back and settle everything. To this day, Loopy Toad still couldn't forget the scene in that prophetic dream of the Toad clan's venerable elder when leading the ministers in a tearful prayer in the main hall. It was like a nightmare that haunted Loopy Toad's mind from time to time. It was time to put an end to all this. On the way home, Loopy Toad looked at the sky, and the scene in front of it seemed to blur as it saw the blue sky that it could only see in its hometown. When Loopy Toad got home, it changed into its yellow skin-tight exercise clothes and wanted to find Sheep as its sparring partner. Yesterday, it had used the first and second forms at the same time and had rubbed against Sheep's skirt. This was a very groundbreaking improvement, and its ultimate goal was to lift Sheep's skirt. But after searching for a long time, Loopy Toad couldn't find any trace of Sheep. Looking at the time, Loopy Toad remembered that it was time for the old man to go grocery shopping, so it was most likely that he and Sheep had gone out to buy groceries. Wang Ling had already returned from school. Looking through the window on the second floor, he raised his eyebrows slightly. He glanced at Jinka on the bed. Jinka trembled slightly and very quickly turned into human form to come over to Wang Ling's side in response. Wang Ling looked at Loopy Toad, who was looking for a sparring partner in the courtyard, and rubbed Jinka's hair. Jinka yawned, then turned into a stream of light and directly landed in front of Loopy Toad. Loopy Toad was startled by the sudden descent of the brown spirit light. Jinka's expression turned serious. I will be your opponent. Loopy Toad, I can refuse. Jinka, no you can. Chapter 560. Was it really going to fight? Loopy Toad couldn't help feeling a sense of heaviness in its heart as it faced the white-robed sword spirit in front of it. But it had to say that this was indeed a rare opportunity to spar. In terms of actual combat experience, Loopy Toad felt that all the enlightened gremlins in the Wang family's small villa combined might not even be half as strong as this white-robed sword spirit in front of it. This was an existence that could easily use the highest profound meaning of Sword Dao, the world-annihilating sword. But Dog 2 had to admit that this was a rare opportunity for a sparring session. Loopy Toad had its own theories about Jinka's origin after the Immortal Mansion incident. Although it hadn't been there to see it for itself, from Little Silver's description, it had been a very shocking scene. Over 1,000 spirit swords were sealed in the intrinsic spirit field of the master of Immortal Mansion. After Jinka had appeared, he had just given them a look, and they had immediately changed owners without even thinking about it. That was the boldness that only a true king of sword spirits had. What did this mean? It meant that the white-robed sword spirit in front of it already stood at the top of Sword Dao, and it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he was the embodiment of Sword Dao. Dumbfounded, Jinka tilted his head and looked at Loopy Toad. Ready? Loopy Toad stared at this face, and the corners of its eyes twitched fiercely. This expression was too similar. If it hadn't known that Jinka was just a sword spirit, Loopy Toad really would have thought that this was Little Master Ling's biological son. Apart from the hair color, this paralyzed face, and even the look in his eyes were extremely similar. There were millions of dead fish eyes in the world, but not all of them had Little Master Ling's characteristics, which were both cold and gentle. Loopy Toad had seen plenty of dead fish eyes in the crowd, but only Wang Ling's dead fish eyes were special. It was said that spirit swords were like their masters, even their eyes were so similar. Loopy Toad felt that no one else could be like this. Loopy Toad took a deep breath in the face of Jinka. The basic dog skills emphasized speed and accuracy, and it was very important to stay calm when punching. At its peak yesterday, Loopy Toad had already been able to throw 200 punches in 1 second, but it had only managed to graze Sheep's skirt. It was very clear that this white-robed sword spirit was even more difficult to deal with than Sheep. I'm going. Loopy Toad, who was wearing a tight yellow exercise suit, jumped back to keep a distance of several zhang from Jinka. Jinka could feel spirit energy gathering under Loopy Toad's paw. A moment later, Loopy Toad abruptly sprang up from the ground and pounced directly at Wang Ling. Its paws left 4 round pits in the ground, and it looked very powerful. While it was in the air, Loopy Toad had already used the first and second forms of the basic dog skills. The 2 styles were used at the same time. The dog fist turned into hundreds of afterimages in the air, dazzling everyone's eyes. But Jinka's expression didn't change in the slightest. Too slow. He raised his hand, and brown sword intent emerged. In order not to hurt Loopy Toad, this sword intent didn't have the slightest destructive power, and instead acted as an absolute parry similar to the brilliant victory sword. Bang 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 bang. Loopy Toad felt like each of its punches was hitting the back of the sword. It changed its angle to attack, and the sword followed, blocking all of its attacks. After 2 moves of the dog skills, Loopy Toad couldn't even get close to Jinka, let alone touch him. Your punches are too slow. This sword intent only has less than 10% of its power, that's all. Jinka stretched out a finger and drew a line 3 meters in front of him, then looked at Loopy Toad. If you can enter this line, you win. Loopy Toad was stunned. How much did he look down on it? Even if it didn't want to fight, it had to fight for pride. As Little Master Ling's first contract spirit beast, Loopy Toad's expression started to turn serious. Bone King. Using the swallowing spell, it took the emerald green Bone King out of its mouth and started to think. Boxing glove, boxing glove, boxing glove. Wang Ling watched this scene from his room. He had been the one to ask Fatty Luo to refine the Bone King previously. To be able to refine Dog Saint's bone into a third-class magic weapon in such a short time proved that Fatty Luo's skill in refining weapons was indeed extraordinary. Furthermore, this magic treasure's characteristic was a little special. It was actually a shape-shifting magic treasure of the space system, and the ability to change at will wasn't common. In the garden, Loopy Toad stared closely at Jinka. It wanted to use the Bone King's power to increase its attack speed, but this was the first time it had used the Bone King's magic treasure characteristic to transform. Sure enough, as Fatty Luo had said, while the ability to change at will was very rare and very strong, it wasn't easy to use. It actually took a full 30 seconds for the Bone King to completely transform into a pair of boxing gloves. This won't do, it looks like I still have to practice more. Loopy Toad sighed in its heart. A battle was ever-changing. Unless it was prepared in advance, 30 seconds was a little too long. After transforming, the Bone King turned into a pair of emerald green boxing gloves, which Loopy Toad's dog paws put on. Not only did it not feel the slightest bit heavy, Loopy Toad's dog paws actually felt a lot lighter than before. Loopy Toad was delighted at this discovery. There's one last step left. Loopy Toad looked at Jinka and took a deep breath. Jinka? Then, Loopy Toad opened its mouth again and actually took out a tape recorder, which it had bought with the money it had swindled from Little Silver. After that, Loopy Toad pressed the play button, and a familiar melody came out of the recorder. Wang Ling was blank. This song was very familiar. It was a very popular old song. Dog 2's body began to sway along with the melody. Wang Ling was startled. This guy could actually do the ghost steps. This was a pure, hot-blooded melody. Wang Ling only remembered that it was a very old classic, but he just couldn't remember the title of the song. When the music had been playing for more than a minute, he saw that Dog 2 had already stopped dancing and had started to prepare for an attack, ready to pounce. When the melody played for 1 minute and 20 seconds, Dog 2 officially made its move. It was still the first and second forms of the basic dog skills, but its attack speed was clearly faster than before. Jinka was using sword intent on the same level as Loopy Toad's, and he was already clearly feeling a little strained. Hit. Dog 2's fists were like flying dragons, and in 2 seconds he had thrown more than 600 punches. But this wasn't the end of it. When the music reached its climax, Dog 2 suddenly started to sing loudly. My right paw opens the sky, I transform into a dog, I move the mountains and rivers, I fill in the cracks, I adjust the time and space of the sunrise in the east, I return to the primordial world to dominate and control. Wang Ling and Jinka. Following the impassioned music, Jinka felt as if the dog in front of him had become a different dog. If he continued to maintain his current, sword intent, it might be hard for him to parry. Lowering his eyes, Jinka wondered if he should increase his strength a little more. But at that moment, the emerald green boxing gloves on Loopy Toad's paws transformed from the Bone King actually changed again, and dense spikes sprouted out of them like bamboo shoots after a rain. Sword Dao, the power of? Jinka's expression changed slightly. He couldn't be wrong. Although the power of Sword Dao on the spikes was very weak, it indeed contained the power of Sword Dao, which Loopy Toad had inherited from Evil Sword God, the 10-meter sword circle. Chapter 561. Wang Ling, who was watching the battle, was also stupefied. It was actually able to perfectly combine the power of Sword Dao with its own spirit technique through a magic treasure, and thus complement each other in battle. Was this also a kind of power brought about by the Bone King's freewheeling characteristic? Wang Ling cupped his chin in contemplation. He couldn't think of any other reasonable explanation. But if that was the case, this Bone King could be said to be a perfect match for Dog 2. It was simply like a life-bonded magic treasure. With the background music of the song Dragon Fist, Buttface aura surged. The emerald green glove in his hand, which had been transformed from the Bone King, combined with the power of the Sword Tao, was filled with spikes. In a short moment, Buttface aura had multiplied. Jinka raised his eyebrows slightly. He saw that Loopy Toad's body had already formed an invisible gravitational field of 10 meters. This was the unique Sword Dao gravitational field of the 10-meter sword circle. Now that Loopy Toad had combined the power of the Bone King, it had already begun to take shape, but compared with the complete form that Evil Sword God had displayed back then, it was still quite a ways off. The 10-meter sword circle that evil sword god had displayed back then was like a small planet that directly formed a 10-meter domain. In a split second, it erupted with an enormous gravitational force that sucked in everything around it and then tore it to shreds. The more proficient the power of sword Dao with this characteristic, the stronger the gravitational force. At that time, evil sword god's 10-meter sword circle could already produce holy void light, and anyone who was sucked into it would feel a strong sense of weakness. But to reach that level, Loopy Toad had to master more than 95% of the power of sword Dao. Even so, the gravitational wave that Loopy Toad was now releasing was already enough to make people feel like they were being pulled. Not bad, Jinka praised indifferently. He could already see Dog 2 madly brandishing its spiked boxing glove to clash with the sword intent that Jinka was emitting, which was less than 10%. But it's no use. Jinka raised his hand and was about to increase the power of his sword intent, but at that moment, he suddenly saw Dog 2's yellow tights actually crumble under the power of the 10-meter sword Dao. Then Jinka saw this scene. In the void, a completely naked green-furred dog waved its jade-green spiked boxing gloves in a frenzy. Its indescribable part was like a green bristlegrass, swaying crazily in the wind as its body swayed. Jinka, you said, do not look at indecent things. Jinka hurriedly covered his eyes. Good chance. Loopy Toad knew its time had come. It met the sword intent with a ferocious hammering and directly entered the 3-meter boundary Jinka had drawn. At the same time, he leapt high into the air, put away his spiked gloves, and pressed his paw prints on Jinka's white robe. The entire set of movements was as smooth as flowing water. Buttface said, I won. Wang Ling and Jinka. At this time, the sun was setting in the west. Buttface was facing the dusk, and his face was filled with unprecedented confidence. Patter. It turned off the recorder behind it and couldn't help but exclaim, as expected. No one can beat me in my Bijim. Wang Ling and Jinka. When the old man and sheep came back from grocery shopping, they found Jinka sitting upright in the living room, rubbing his eyes with a serious expression on his face as he gave himself a massage. Lord Jinka? Sheep moved closer to Jinka and looked at him strangely, but realized that Jinka wasn't paying attention to her. The old man couldn't help turning to Loopy Toad, who was lying on the floor, and asking, Little Coo, what are you doing? Dog 2, doing eye exercises. The old man and sheep. That night, neither Father Wang nor Lai Mengmeng came down for dinner. In the study, Lai Mengmeng was doing his best to urge Father Wang to write his draft. Although Father Wang had crushed millions of votes in the last double monthly votes battle as the undisputed champion, he had still owed a lot of drafts. Among these millions of monthly votes were the support of big shots, as well as the support and help of fans. But now that he owed more than 100,000 words, Father Wang really felt like dying. He didn't even bother to adjust his black-rimmed glasses as he typed numbly on the keyboard. After typing who knew how many words, Father Wang said weakly, How many words do I still owe? Lai Mengmeng calculated the number of words. Not many, just 110,000. You can rest after today's battle. Father Wang, Lai Mengmeng, don't you still have that invigorating cigar? Hurry up and take a few puffs. Father Wang looked like he wanted to die. Can I go back on my word? Crossing his arms, Lai Mengmeng smiled and looked at Father Wang. How do you want to go back on your word? Father Wang, for example, if I post on Weibo and say that red hair medicinal wine is fake, will I be arrested across provinces? Lai Mengmeng, Father Wang's gloomy eyes suddenly lit up. Actually, I've already thought of a plan to delay updates. I'll post that it's fake wine. Then, you can use your Weibo to help me repost it, and say that that I've been arrested across provinces and can't update. Generally, once you're in custody, you can coax and pester me for more than 7 days. That way, I can delay it for 7 days. Lai Mengmeng, then what about after 7 days, Father Wang? Just say that although I was bailed out, red hair medicinal wine still won't let me off. It started to send people to kill me, and they chased me to the ends of the earth. In the end, I had no choice but to flee the city I lived in. I drifted all the way to the holy land of the South Pole, where I finally built a rocket and flew into space to Mars to start a brand new life. Lai Mingmeng was silent. Actually, you can try posting on Weibo. Just say, if I say that red hair medicinal wine is fake, what should I do if they're prepared to send people across provinces to arrest me? Can I? Father Wang was pleasantly surprised. Lai Mingmeng nodded. Father Wang swiftly edited his Weibo post, not even adding the dog head. After about 3 minutes, Father Wang refreshed his Weibo post. There were already more than 2,000 likes and hundreds of comments and reposts. The first Weibo comment, Visitor from Hell. Zhou Zhe's response, which organization is so bold? I'll send the Hell Envoy right away. The second Weibo comment was from the Exploding Sky Sect's official Weibo, shocking. Wang Situ has been arrested. Our Exploding Sky Sect will be the first to disagree. Do you understand the cultivation grenade? Our Exploding Sky Sect disciples are going to blow up the door and rescue him. Fist salute. Fist salute. The third Weibo comment was from the official disabled elderly village Weibo, village chief Qin Mu. This author says he's been arrested and doesn't want to update. Doge. The fourth Weibo comment was from the legend of Paladin _ Healing Knight official Weibo. Teacher Wang Situ must be using this as an excuse to sneak a peek at Lolis with me. Let's go to Turkey to see Lolis. They're all legal Lolis now. Chapter 562. There were still a lot of comments left on Weibo. Lai Mingmeng casually scrolled through one and saw that it was either an official Weibo post of a cultivation sect that had been forwarded, or some sect elder or even sect leader had left a comment below. A person whose identity was verified as Principal of Huaxiu University of Thunder and Lightning and Head of Guadian Martial Arts Dojo commented, "There's no such thing as procrastinating. I can't help but want to teach any author who procrastinates a lesson." From Lolita Immortal Instructor Blog. Is Lord Wang Situ tired? Our celestial sect provides door-to-door performance services to improve your mind. We don't charge. As long as it was updated, it would be fine. If you need, please PM this official Bo Nyang. What? A comment from the official Weibo of Legend of Paladin _ Healing Paladin under the lowly Immortal sect. Official Weibo girl. Please follow me. Mutual fan. Lai Mingmeng looked at Father Wang, then directly grabbed the mouse and closed the Weibo page. Stop struggling, just work hard on writing. As soon as Lai Mingmeng said this, Father Wang saw his phone on the table suddenly vibrate as he received a secret text message from the number 77777777. When he saw the number, Father Wang already knew who it was. He opened the message and saw that it was from that lord. That adult, I saw your Weibo. Someone wants to arrest you? What was that red hair medicinal wine for? Should I get someone to check it out? Forget it. I'll just directly ban the trademark. I've already asked President Xi to locate your phone. If someone in Shanghai City comes looking for you, President Xi will know right away. I'll look for whoever chases after you. So hurry up and update. Without an immortal king to watch, I'm going to die. 3. Angle _ Father Wang. Standing far away, Lai Mingmeng didn't see the specific content of Father Wang's message, but it was very obvious. When he saw this message, Father Wang's expression had already turned deathly still. Also, the number of the message just now was 77. Needless to say, this must be a message from a big shot fan urging him to update. 77. Lai Mingmeng cupped his chin and thought, the world is focusing on you. July 20th was the 13th Thursday of the semester. At noon, Wang Ling was going to test the medicine ball when the opening ceremony was already over. It wasn't like last time, where there were 3 whole grades of spectators, which made him feel a lot more at ease. However, there were still onlookers. They were all people who didn't want to rest during the afternoon self-cultivation and came out to watch. Apart from Wang Ling, there were 3 other people in grade 1 who had signed up for the medicine ball event. Fang Xing, that classmate Shi Shuai from before, and Hu Su, who had been held back for 4 whole years and whose grades had recently improved by leaps and bounds. After the slap in the face the day before yesterday, Shi Shuai was not as arrogant as yesterday, which made Teacher Yi very happy. Shi Shuai was usually a troublemaker and had caused quite a bit of trouble in school. The day before yesterday, the results of the 10 people had been extraordinary, but Shi Shuai was the only one who was at the bottom. Teacher Yi reckoned that this matter should have dealt a big blow to Shi Shuai. Therefore, in today's medicine ball competition, regardless of whether Shi Shuai's results were good or not, Teacher Yi had decided to give him a round of encouragement. After hitting him with a stick, he had to give him a piece of candy. This was the basic operation. Every teacher at number 60 high school paid great attention to spiritual education. The success of a spiritual education would directly affect a person's external development. This was especially true in grade 1, when students would feel empty and confused. They were especially prone to cynicism and liked to post especially pretentious, non-mainstream posts in their WeChat moments and WeChat moments. It was especially important to guide them properly. This time, the supervisors were still the same 3 referees who had been here the day before and the day before. However, this time, the arbiter was the old referee of the 3, and Audiobook wasn't present today because of work. Holding a special red medicine ball in his hands, the old referee gave a pre-match explanation. According to the competition rules for the medicine ball event in the district sports meet this time, we will evaluate the results of 4 students: Wang Ling, Fang Xing, Shi Shuai, and classmate Hu Su. In the end, the total score will be calculated by adding up the distance they threw. 1 meter is 1 point. Full score is 100 meters. After saying that, the old referee handed the special red solid ball to Shi Shuai. You go first. The old referee did not do this intentionally. It was purely because Shi Shuai was closer to the ball. It was true that Shi Shuai had left a very deep impression on people the day before yesterday as a contrarian. However, he had to be given a chance to change. What if he did well today? An ordinary person's medicine ball weighed between 5 and 8 kilograms. If a foundation establishment cultivator used an ordinary medicine ball, it naturally wouldn't be a problem to throw it several hundred meters. However, this red medicine ball had been specially custom-made by the Cultivation Academy for foundation establishment cultivators to use in competitions. Although it was small, it weighed 100 kilograms. The moment Shi Shuai touched it, his hands couldn't help sinking. Although it wasn't as easy as the old referee holding the ball with one hand, it wasn't a problem for him to throw it. The old judge was a cultivator of the golden core stage. For him, the medicine ball of the building foundation stage was as heavy as a chicken. On the other side, the remaining 2 referees had already set up a sand path on number 60 high's sports field using a sand-gourd magic treasure to prevent the medicine ball from damaging the sports field when it fell to the ground. The sand path was 100 meters long, but the 3 referees generally felt that foundation establishment students who hadn't gone through professional training wouldn't be able to throw it very far. Yesterday, the furthest the 2 key high schools, Reliance High School and Prime Elevation High School, had thrown was only 70 meters. What was more, number 60 high school didn't have the ability to compete in the medicine ball event in previous years. It had lost the last 2 years and had been at the bottom of the table. Number 59 high school's result had been a long way behind number 60 high school's. When it was time to officially throw the medicine ball, Shi Shuai couldn't help looking at Wang Ling. He had been looking for an opportunity to apologize to him all this time. Shi Shuai had been planning this since the opening ceremony the day before yesterday. He had repeated his apology lines countless times in his heart, but just couldn't get them out. Furthermore, there were a lot of people nearby now, and he was too embarrassed to do so. Let's compete first, then look for another opportunity. Shi Shuai secretly grit his teeth, then looked at the 100 meters of sand in front of him with a serious expression. He gathered strength, then positioned his body like a catapult, and threw the ball forward with a roar. Go! Shi Shuai's medicine ball flew in a perfect arc in the air and finally fell into the sandpit in front of him. The hell? 73 meters? The old referee and the 2 referees on the side, as well as Teacher Yi and all the students in the field, were directly stupefied. On the side, Fang Xing smiled as if he had expected this. Chapter 563. 73 meters. Everyone was shocked. The old referee was completely dumbfounded when he saw Shi Shuai's result. 73 meters was another record. In history, the best result for a medicine ball throw of a 100 kilograms foundation establishment cultivator was only 71 meters. Shi Shuai had never expected to throw it so far. In that split second just now, he had thought that 40 meters would be his limit. What was going on? He looked at his hands in disbelief. Could it be that during yesterday's relay run, he had inadvertently opened up his conception and governor vessels? The referees were dumbfounded, but the trajectory just now had been normal. There was an anti-cheating mechanism on the sandpath. If a spell was used to cheat, the mechanism would be activated. The instant the medicine ball was thrown, its speed and landing point would already be monitored, so if Shi Shuai had cheated, the referees would be able to tell. The truth was that this anti-cheating mechanism existed in name only. The reason was very simple, because it was just an anti-cheating mechanism. But what Wang Ling had used was a great Dao. The old referee sucked in a breath, still a little dazed. He had been at number 60 high for 3 days, and he had broken records 3 days in a row. On the first day, he had run the 10,000-meter relay with a sword. On the second day, the shooting student representative Jiang Bai had broken the record with 0 mistakes. And now, on the third day, he had also won the medicine ball? Number 60 high this year really seemed pretty amazing. Record down the result, 73 meters. The old referee finally announced. He sighed in his heart. The younger generation will surpass us in time. Lotus Sun, I didn't expect classmate Shi Shuai to be so amazing. A group of people from grade 1, class 3 came out to support him. Among the familiar faces were Little Peanut, Super Chin, Dopey Gua, Lotus Sun, Feather Lin and the others. Dopey Gua, he got lucky, just like Super Chin the day before yesterday. Super Chin? To be honest, Super Chin really couldn't refute Dopey Gua's words. If he hadn't been in top form and had gotten lucky, he wouldn't have been able to achieve that result in the 1,000-meter relay run the day before yesterday. This result already broke the record, right? Little Peanut said, and I know that this sand path has an anti-cheating mechanism. If you use a spell while throwing the medicine ball, it'll be detected. Super Chin snickered. Do you think it's because the spell is so advanced that this anti-cheating mechanism can't detect it? Super Chin said this in a very low and purely joking tone, but Wang Ling's lips twitched when he heard it. Student Wang Ling, it's your turn. With such an outstanding performance, Shi Shuai was in a great mood. He directly handed the medicine ball to Wang Ling and apologized. I'm really sorry about what happened the day before yesterday. As he spoke, he reached out to give Wang Ling another warm hug. But just as he stretched out his hand, Fang Xing swatted it away. Nice apology. This child is worth teaching. But classmate Wang Ling isn't interested in that. Fang Xing was still bewildered in his heart. It was one thing to apologize, but why did he have to hit her? Shi Shuai could only withdraw his hand in embarrassment. Scratching his head, he looked at Wang Ling. Next time, classmate Wang Ling, tell me what you want to eat, I'll treat you. Without saying anything else, Wang Ling nodded at Shi Shuai and the matter was settled. On the side, Teacher Yi snickered inwardly. Whatever conflict there was, it was always good to resolve it internally. They were all classmates in the same school, so there was no need to make things so tense at all. Teacher Yi had originally planned to have a heart-to-heart talk with Wang Ling and Shi Shuai after the sports meet to resolve the conflict. But now, it looked like he had been worrying too much. This cohort of students didn't just improve their physical fitness, they also learned self-reflection and self-growth. Teacher Yi felt that this was probably the cohort of students he had never taught before. But the school's consensus now was that this cohort was the worst, so Teacher Yi couldn't let it slip, and could only be secretly happy in his heart. Taking the medicine ball from Shi Shuai, Wang Ling sighed sadly. He had tested himself in the medicine ball event before, but his strength hadn't been very stable. Even with the Dao Talisman seal in place, it was still difficult to throw the ball. He felt that it was much more difficult than a relay run on a sword. Holding the ball in his hand, Wang Ling stood on the throwing line as cheers came from the sidelines. Go, classmate Wang Ling. Lotus Sun and Feather Lin took the lead in shouting. With Lotus Sun's support, many boys from other classes also joined in. Go Wang Ling! Go, classmate Wang Ling! Beat Shi Shui 73 meters, I believe you can do it. Wang Ling took a deep breath and got ready to throw. The moment he threw the ball, he suddenly realized that something wasn't right. It seemed that he had used too much force. In the end, Wang Ling's score was 65 meters. Wang Ling breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, the ball came back. Good job, classmate Wang Ling. Teacher Yi was overjoyed. This was already a pretty good result. In the crowd of onlookers, Dopigua asked in a low voice, "Strange, did you see the parabola of the medicine ball just now?" Super Chen shrugged. I didn't pay much attention. When I came back to my senses, Wang Ling's ball had already fallen. Dopigua. Then maybe my eyes were playing tricks on me? After confirming the result, the old referee pushed up his glasses. No problem, mark down the result. 65 meters. When Wang Ling had thrown the medicine ball, Fang Xing had been drinking water. In the end, when he saw Wang Ling throw the ball, he almost spat out water. What the hell? No problem, it was normal for other people not to see it, but Fang Xing had seen it clearly. If he hadn't seen it wrong. Just now, Wang Ling's medicine ball had probably circled the earth once. A few minutes before Wang Ling had thrown the ball on a beach in Mishio Nation, the sun shone down on the golden sand. On a recliner on the beach lay a blond, blue-eyed foreign man with big chest muscles. The man was only wearing a pair of beach shorts, and on either side of him stood a row of beautiful assistants. No news from Sister Hai, Heng? The man rested his head on his pillow and spoke in Mandarin with a crooked Chinese accent as he took a sip of juice. This was juice made from fried cassiope spirit fruit imported from abroad, and was sold for 1,000 immortal gold bars per drop. Edmark will be there. President Bai is still looking for information, but he should be here soon. A female assistant put down the phone in her hand and bent over to whisper in his ear. Our Night Chief is determined to get Beast King's remains. Anyone who stands in our way will be cleaned up. The lips of this big-chested foreigner curled up into a smile. We've been planning this since last year, and we've set up a lot of spies in Huaxiao Nation in order to take Beast King's remains for ourselves. As long as we control Beast King's remains, we'll have the whole world. Mr. Edmark, this subordinate is slow-witted, the female assistant frowned, completely unable to understand what it meant to have the whole world. This Mr. Edmark smiled and spoke telepathically only to the female assistant. You've been by our side for many years, and you've gone through fire and water. There's no harm in telling you. This is no longer a secret among Night Chief's higher-ups. Do you know why we're fighting over Beast King's remains? The female assistant also replied telepathically, is it for extinct materials? No, no, no. Chapter 564. Level 13? The female assistant's face turned pale with shock. She had been with President Edmark for decades, and had seen her fair share of storms and experiences, but she had never heard of a level 13 spell. So far, the supreme legendary secret spells she had heard of were only level 10. A level 10 spell was already a transcendent spell, and the power of a level 10 spell was no less than 100 spirit power nuclear bombs. A level 13 spell, a spell that crossed 3 levels of level 10? How terrifying was that? The female assistant couldn't help breaking out in a cold sweat, and she didn't dare think any further. Do you think Xiao has been doing everything in its power to prevent the invasion of the perverted nation all these years for the sake of God? Holding a glass of juice, President Edmark couldn't help laughing. Of course, it's indeed very important to protect the extinct resources. But more importantly, they also want to obtain the level 13 transcendent spell hidden in Beast King's remains. Last year, our spies dispatched by Night Chief obtained this information from Huaxiao's military. The female assistant was stunned once again. Despite Xiao's strict defense all these years, they had still been able to plant spies inside, and they had even obtained information from the military. In terms of secrecy, it went without saying that the level 13 spell in Beast King's remains was highly confidential. But how on earth had they obtained this information? Could it be that Night Chief spies had also been planted inside Huaxiao? The female assistant cupped her chin in her hand as she pondered. Previously, we've seen a rank 10 spell, and its power is already extraordinary. According to the inference of the Master of Spellcasters, the destructive power of a grade 11 spell can bring disaster to an entire planet. A grade 12 spell can annihilate a planet, and a grade 13 spell can completely erase an entire planet from the universe. President Edmark seemed to think of something, and the corners of his lips curled up into a strange smile. Now, you should know how important this level 13 spell is to us, right? As long as we control it, we can threaten the whole world. We've been planning this for a long time, and President Bai's investigation should be over soon. The female assistant turned pale with shock, then knelt down on one knee. She lowered her head and had an extremely humble expression on her face. President Edmark actually shared such an important secret with this stupid subordinate. This subordinate has nothing to repay you with. These are all trivial matters. President Edmark waved his hand and smiled, as if everything was under his control. Who do you think I am? I'm one of the 6 great generals of Night Chief, and the hand of the 6 great generals. Although Bai Zhe is on equal footing with me, he doesn't have as much authority as I do. After this grand plan is successfully completed, I will think of a way to recruit Bai Zhe and have him work under me. When the female assistant heard this, the reverence on her face deepened. That's right, what kind of status and strength did President Edmark have? When Night Chief was first established, the earliest group of elders were the first subordinates of the current leader of Night Chief, Night Ghost Spirit Emperor. Night Chief didn't have a deputy leader, but Edmark's status was already no different from that of a deputy leader. Apart from Night Ghost Spirit Emperor, everyone in Night Chief had to show President Edmark some respect, and the other 5 generals were no exception. And among the 6 generals, President Bai's position was actually the lowest. Our 6 generals work together on the surface, but behind the scenes, we pretend to be brothers. In fact, there were already people colluding in the dark, so the truth of this big plan was very important to me. I've planted 70% of the people in the entire plan. I know all the details of the plan. This is our advantage and we must make good use of it. President Edmark said. He put down the juice and reached out to stroke the female assistant's face with a thick, broad palm. He looked at the rest of the attendants on the side. All of you are dismissed. Swish. With a swish, the attendants scattered in all directions. Only President Edmark and his first female assistant were left on the huge golden beach. President Edmark, isn't this not very good? The female assistant's face flushed. In the next moment, President Edmark stood up. His muscles swelled as he changed once again. Thick wings and a thick and long tail stretched out from his back, and at the same time, the fur on his body grew thicker. President Edmark's body had been injected with the blood of an ancient griffin, and he was one of the few successful test subjects in the Mishio people's experiment with magical beasts back then. President Edmark is really too handsome. The female assistant was deeply intoxicated. In this state, the male hormones all over President Edmark's body surged, and she couldn't help but feel weak at the knees. The two of them were very close, and this kind of male hormone was too stimulating for the female assistant. Just as she was about to collapse, Edmark's broad palm caught her slender waist. As expected of the person who has been by my side the longest. Whether it's a man or a woman, when I'm in beast form, no one can last more than 3 seconds under my powerful hormones. President Edmark gently stroked the female assistant's face. You're so cute. Can I touch you? This subordinate is President Edmark's. President Edmark can do whatever he wants. Blushing, the female assistant turned her head away, trying hard not to meet President Edmark's gaze, and instead turned her gaze to the surging blue sea. Just as President Edmark was about to bend down and kiss her, the female assistant suddenly saw an extremely bright spot of light appear on the horizon in the distance. The female assistant rubbed her eyes to make sure she wasn't seeing things, and the spot of light was getting bigger and bigger. She pointed at the horizon and exclaimed, "President Edmark, look! There seems to be a meteor on the horizon." A meteor? This golden beach was known as the Beach of the Sun. Because of the artificial sun, it was bright all year round, and it wasn't a good place to look at the stars. How could there be a meteor? President Edmark frowned. He was a little unhappy that the atmosphere had been interrupted, but he still followed the female assistant's gaze to the horizon. Indeed, there was a spot of light that was getting brighter and brighter. But it didn't seem to be a meteor. President Edmark opened his heavenly eye and did his best to capture the meteor's trajectory, but it was too fast. Even his dynamic vision couldn't capture it. President Edmark was alarmed. He gathered all his spirit energy in his eyes and combined it with the eagle eye of the ancient griffin bloodline, but he could only get a general idea of what was going on. But in the next moment, he realized that the meteor was actually flying toward him. There was a loud boom. The meteor smashed through his chest, leaving a huge bloody hole. Blood splattered and drenched the female assistant's snow-white face. As the female assistant screamed, President Edmark lowered his head in disbelief and looked at his chest. The medicine ball. Chapter 565. President Edmark was dead? What on earth was that sudden drop in spiritual pressure just now? Drenched in blood, the female assistant trembled helplessly on the golden beach. She hadn't clearly seen what had happened, but the instant President Edmark's chest had been pierced by an unknown object, she had felt a terrible pressure, as if the sky had collapsed and suffocated her. Although it had only been for a split second, the female assistant had felt the threat of death. Who on earth was it? Someone had actually managed to assassinate President Edmark without him noticing. What on earth was that unknown object that had pierced through President Edmark? Gritting her teeth, the female assistant got to her feet on trembling legs and carefully examined the bloody hole in President Edmark's chest. President Edmark, who had the ancient griffin bloodline, had a very strong regenerative ability. Under normal circumstances, even if his head had been cut off, he wouldn't have died immediately. But now, the bloody hole in his chest was bleeding nonstop. It was very clear that this was a wound that couldn't be healed at all. It was likely that that unknown object had a serious injury effect, and it had struck right in the heart. It could be said that this was an attack that had been carefully planned to kill without any resistance. I have to report this to Spirit Emperor as soon as possible. With trembling hands, the female assistant dialed the emergency hotline inside Night Chief. It had been less than 3 minutes since President Edmark's death. If she could make it in time, she might be able to collect the remnant of President Edmark's soul on this golden beach, but it was very strange. The female assistant realized that Night Ghost Spirit Emperor's emergency hotline was unexpectedly unanswered. In the past, such a situation would never have occurred. At the same time, a riot was taking place in a secret laboratory on the border of Mishio Nation. Spirit Emperor has been assassinated. Alert! Alert! Level 1 alert. Several Night Chief disciples shouted in alarm. A man with waist-length black hair and a face like a vampire's was half kneeling on the ground with a pained expression on his face as he gasped in pain. This pained man was none other than Night Ghost Spirit Emperor, whom President Edmark had mentioned earlier. All of this had happened too suddenly. Just now, an unknown object had smashed through the 81 true immortal barriers outside the laboratory, smashed the impregnable barrier outside the laboratory, and took away one of Night Ghost Spirit Emperor's arms. Damn it! Who is it? How dare you assassinate me so brazenly? Night Ghost Spirit Emperor flew into a rage. His entire right shoulder and arm had been crippled, and the injury could not be healed. The unknown object that had smashed him into this state clearly had a heavy injury effect. To be able to injure him to such an extent, this person's strength was extremely terrifying. Regardless of whether it was a Dharma treasure or a Dharma technique, to be able to cause such a degree of injury, this person's strength was definitely above that of a true immortal. Night Ghost Spirit Emperor frowned deeply. He could only think of one possibility. Firstly, this person was definitely an immortal venerable. Second, this person was very likely the legendary immortal Jinyu. In today's world, all countries abided by the International True Immortal Convention. Furthermore, every year, the heads of state would conduct random checks on each other to rule out the possibility of a venerated immortal. So the possibility that this sneak attacker was that immortal Jinyun was very high. But the question was, how had Night Chief been targeted by such a big shot? Night Ghost Spirit Emperor's imagination ran wild. This matter must be thoroughly investigated immediately. He had to find out the truth. Sir Spirit Elder, there's a phone call. At this moment, one of the disciples suddenly said, I don't have time to answer it now. Night Ghost Spirit Emperor clenched his teeth, then exhaled a breath of cold air and froze his arm on the ground. That strange magic artifact just now had a serious injury effect, which prevented the wound from healing. Get me some anti-serious injury medicine right away. My lord, this is an urgent internal call. It's from President Edmark's first assistant, Judy. The follower said again. I said I'm busy, didn't you hear me? One more word of nonsense and this seat will immediately crush your head. Because he had lost an arm, Night Ghost Spirit Emperor was in a very bad mood. Edmark is getting more and more outrageous. Tell him to call me personally. The disciples, in number 60 High's stadium. 65 meters is already pretty good, isn't it? Dopigwa couldn't help exclaiming in admiration. I didn't expect Wang Ling to be so amazing. You look so skinny, but you still have something in you. I've never felt that Wang Ling was weak, alright? Super Chin sked. To be honest, I think Wang Ling can hide his strength. Unfortunately, Wang Ling's performance is too stable each time, and his exam scores are always in the middle of the class. Teacher Pan can't say much. Speaking up to this point, Super Chen couldn't help spreading his hands. But because Wang Ling's performance had always been very stable, Super Chen had the misconception that Wang Ling might be at this middle level. No matter how strong a big shot was, after going through so many exams, he would eventually give himself away. Furthermore, number 60 High's teachers never gave out test papers in a conventional way. It was much more difficult to predict the average score of the exam questions before the exam, who would be so bored as to be a pain in the ass. Thus, Super Chen's original idea that Wang Ling was a hidden big shot was dispelled. The third person to take the test was Fong Xing. When he took the medicine ball from Wang Ling, Fong Xing felt that it felt sticky, and from the color, it seemed to be a little different, but the medicine ball used in the competition was red to begin with. Furthermore, there were some grains of sand stuck to it, so the subtle difference in color couldn't be seen at all if one didn't look carefully. Wait a minute. This wasn't blood, was it? Fong Xing broke out in a sweat. Wang Ling's medicine ball had circled the earth just now. Who knew if he had accidentally hit something? He sniffed the blood on the medicine ball, but didn't think it was human blood. Fong Xing sighed. He decided to stand next to the medicine ball and recite the rebirth mantra later. No matter what it wasn't good to accidentally hurt a small animal. When Fong Xing threw the ball, a young referee suddenly said, Captain, don't you feel that the color of this medicine ball is a little different from before? It seems a lot brighter? Just your imagination. The old referee said, Have you heard the nursery rhyme, I found a penny on the side of the road? The young referee was blank. Yes, the old referee. This nursery rhyme praises the spirit of not pocketing the money one finds. When you listened to this nursery rhyme when you were little, and every time you found money, you would hand it over to the police uncle. Don't you feel that the red scarf on your chest is a lot brighter? Chapter 566. On the other side, Wei Ji and Loopy Toad also arrived at the entrance of the Spirit Beast Assessment Center. The battle of Spirit Beasts was about to begin, and Wei Ji and Loopy Toad went to the front desk to board the plane with number 60 High's wholesale authorization letter in his hand. When the little sister at the front desk saw the copy of Wei Ji's pet trainer qualification certificate on the authorization letter, her mouth directly dropped to the size of an egg. This was a big-shot pet trainer. The little sister trembled as she tapped the seal. She had already been very shocked when an S-level pet trainer had come before. She hadn't expected another SSR to come now. It was very obvious that these two pet trainers had been hired by the schools. Were all pet trainers so short of money these days? The little sister was a little puzzled. "Hello, Mr. Wei Ji and Mr. Dog 2, this is your authorization letter. Your match will take place in Stadium number 3 in 15 minutes. The little sister gave a very professional smile. "Thanks." Wei Ji accepted the documents and habitually tugged on his cap, turning it to the back. Just as Wei Ji was about to leave, the little sister suddenly said, Wait?" Wei Ji turned his head with a puzzled expression. "Is there something else?" The little sister smiled awkwardly. "I'm very curious. For a pet trainer of Mr. Wei Ji's level, what is the standard fee for commanding a battle on behalf of his master?" "Oh, I won't charge you." Wei Ji shook his head and looked at Loopy Toad at his feet, his eyes sparkling. "Brother Dog and I are true love." The little sister, Loopy Toad, the Battle of Spirit Beasts was a true stadium battle. After the 3 spirit beasts from each school were selected from the group stages to make it to the finals, the final championship match would be between these 3 spirit beasts. All the stadium battles would be broadcast live to all the major high schools at the same time, and Loopy Toad guessed that there would definitely be a lot of people watching the final championship match. Before the match, Loopy Toad had already made some predictions about the other 2 spirit beasts that would appear in the championship match. The land shark, aluminum small fish from Reliance High School, the golden-back gorilla Jinbei from number 59 High School, and the fighting lion, chosen by the Shao clan from God Vision High School would be its biggest enemies. When they arrived at the entrance of number 3 dojo, the S-level pet trainer number 59 High School had entered with the golden-back gorilla. Their opponent was a giant crystal king scorpion from Prime Elevation High School, which was about the size of a monkey. The pet trainer sent by Prime Elevation High School was also an S-level player. The golden-back gorilla was a 4th-class spirit beast, but the crystal king scorpion was 3rd class. But as long as pet trainers were involved in a battle between spirit beasts, the outcome couldn't be determined purely by the spirit beast's grade. When pet trainers were involved in a battle between spirit beasts, the outcome was actually unknown. An outstanding pet trainer's role wasn't just to direct the battle and assist the spirit beast in winning. Directing the battle was only secondary. The more important thing was to help the spirit beast discover the opponent's flaws in battle, and to quickly react and formulate a targeted battle plan that could win. The fact that Wei Ji could obtain an SSR aptitude as a pet trainer was enough to prove that his perception was very strong and that his mind was rather nimble. While Loopy Toad was thinking this, the introduction of Dojo number 3's entrance ceremony had already begun. The male commentator began to introduce the contestants in the commentator's seat. What you'll see next is contestant Jinbei from number 59 High School and contestant Scorpion Lalai from Prime Elevation High School. It's worth mentioning that this time, contestant Scorpion Lalai from Prime Elevation High School has come to this stage after defeating 3 powerful 3rd-class spirit beasts, namely Spider Detective, Cockroach Bully, and Shark Chili. Let's look forward to Scorpion Lalai's brilliant performance. Loopy Toad. In front of Dojo number 3, Wei Ji looked at the broadcast on the big screen. "Brother Dog, who do you think will win?" Loopy Toad said without hesitation, "This golden-back gorilla has a higher chance of winning." Wei Ji chuckled. "Great minds think alike, Brother Dog. As expected, you and I are a match made in heaven." Loopy Toad. Loopy Toad had previously investigated all the spirit beasts participating in this competition. Although this golden-back gorilla's grade wasn't as high as this Crystal King Scorpion's, these 2 spirit beasts were very incompatible and could be said to be natural enemies. Furthermore, there were clear rules in the dojo battles between spirit beasts that forbade them from using ultimate killing moves, which limited a lot of things. Furthermore, the Crystal King Scorpion's most prided mental toxin was greatly restricted. In this competition, the Crystal King Scorpion was only allowed to use anesthetic toxins. However, anesthetic toxins generally wouldn't have any effect on such a huge golden-back gorilla in a short period of time. Coupled with the fact that golden-back gorillas had coarse and thick skin, it was questionable whether this Crystal King Scorpion's stinger would be able to stab it. The battle began. The golden-back gorilla started pounding its chest and stamping its feet. This was a battle roar type of sound wave spell which could be used as a mental deterrent. On the other hand, the Crystal King scorpion circled around the golden-backed gorilla, looking for a place to inject the anesthetic toxin. The pet trainers on both sides fought a battle of wits and courage. The Crystal King scorpion's pet trainer was constantly looking for an opportunity to attack, but the golden-backed gorilla's pet trainer was even more vigilant. As long as the Crystal King scorpion made the slightest movement, he would immediately warn it. 3 minutes had already passed since the start of the match. There was no physical conflict between the two sides. There's no need to watch, the golden-backed gorilla has already won this battle. Wei Ji looked at the time and shook his head straight away. You definitely can't fight a protracted battle with a spirit beast like the golden-backed gorilla, which can easily enter a berserk state. It's easy to trigger a berserk state, and the golden-backed gorilla's battle roar at the start of the battle is stacking its anger. Once it enters a berserk state, even if the Crystal King scorpion stings it, it won't matter much. Anyone with the slightest foundation in pet training would know that a berserk spirit beast was basically completely immune to paralytic toxins. If the use of mental toxins hadn't been banned in the dojo battles, this Crystal King scorpion might have had a better chance of winning. As Wei Ji analyzed the situation, a number of pet trainers nearby looked over in surprise, agreement, and doubt. There's 1 more minute before the battle is over. Wei Ji already couldn't be bothered to look at the screen, and instead crouched down to stroke Loopy Toad's dog fur. Miraculously, Loopy Toad realized that it actually didn't dislike it at all, and instead felt a little comfortable. Previously, apart from little Masterling who had stroked Loopy Toad's fur, anyone else who had touched it would make it feel uncomfortable. But Wei Ji didn't feel this way at all. Grooming a spirit beast's fur before a battle is good for relaxing. Wei Ji stood up after helping Loopy Toad for about a minute. Because on the big screen, the commentator had already officially announced the end of the battle. Since the Crystal King scorpion's paralytic toxins had no effect, it had been directly knocked out by the golden-backed gorilla's mountainous iron hammer. The two pet trainers shook hands and then left the arena. The golden-backed gorilla and Crystal King scorpion were sent down to have their injuries checked, as was customary in dojo battles. As Wei Ji had predicted, the battle was over in 1 minute. The pet trainers who had questioned Wei Ji earlier all looked at him in amazement. Who on earth is this person? The 2S-level pet trainers have come out. Teacher Xia Fei and Teacher Yu Yang. They are both famous pet trainers from the Pet Trainers Guild. The two pet trainers smiled as they walked out of the dojo, and many young pet trainers crowded around them for autographs. But the moment they saw Wei Ji, they were startled. Mas, Wei Ji greeted the two of them with a smile and made a shushing gesture. Chapter 567. Wei Ji just made a gesture, and the 2S-level pet trainers immediately looked away, pretending to be completely careless. Although their gazes had only met for a split second, Loopy Toad could clearly sense the reverence in the 2S-level pet trainer's eyes for Wei Ji. Loopy Toad was all too familiar with this look. It was the same expression people in the cultivation circle had when they heard of Ling Jinren and saw little Master Ling in person. When they were about to enter the arena, Loopy Toad and Wei Ji walked through a very long passageway. There was no one else in the passageway, and Loopy Toad couldn't help asking, "Are those two your disciples?" It felt that they were a little old. As an SSR-level pet trainer, Wei Ji looked very young. Although he was still working hard to make money for the rations of his contracted spirit beasts, it wasn't hard to see that he was a person who took good care of himself. Wei Ji shook his head. No. Loopy Toad nodded inwardly and agreed. Wei Ji added, "They're my grand disciple." Loopy Toad and Wei Ji's entrance attracted a lot of attention. When they came out of the passageway, Loopy Toad changed into its yellow tights. Last time, the tights had burst open because of the power of sight, and Mother Wong had rushed to make a few more sets overnight. For Loopy Toad, the yellow tights weren't just training clothes, but also battle clothes. That dog is a little interesting. A green fur dog wearing tights. This is the first time I've seen an Akita, an ordinary dog breed, evolve into a spirit beast. It's probably a hybrid mutation, right? The big screen in the Spirit Beast Assessment Center attracted the gazes of a lot of pet trainers as they discussed it. That was because Loopy Toad was the smallest of the spirit beasts participating in the competition this time. It was even smaller than the Crystal King Scorpion, Scorpion Lele. And this time, Loopy Toad's opponent was Building Materials High School's Flame Tsunami Dog, full name, Flame-Splitting Tsunami Dog. As soon as the pet trainers and spirit beasts from both sides entered the arena, everyone was shocked by the stark contrast in size between the two spirit beasts. Compared with Building Materials High School's Flame Tsunami Dog, Loopy Toad was really too small. They're both at third class, but the difference in size is too big. Many pet trainers couldn't help looking at the information on the spirit beasts announced on the big screen. This was because the Spirit Beast Appraisal Center had recorded the information of all the legally contracted spirit beasts, and the data was directly retrieved from the Appraisal Center's database. Grade, species, body shape, and even habits were all announced. Flame Tsunami Dog. Flame Dog Family, Flame Tsunami Dog Species. Name, Mad Wave 3 Blade Grade, 3rd Grade Weight, 200 kg Length, 4 meters Height. Characteristics, violent, courageous, unrestrained. In the commentator's seat, the commentator said, "As everyone can see, the color of the Mad Wave 3 Blade's fur is very beautiful. This means that this Flame Tsunami Hound has been trained very well." According to its owner, this Mad Wave 3 Blades eats insects as its main food. The main source of food is the Spiritual Butterfly Village's abundant spiritual butterfly. No wonder it was nurtured so well. Many pet trainers were stunned. The spirit butterflies of Spirit Butterfly Village were high-level edible insects, and each one was worth a fortune. A spirit butterfly can be sold for 500 Immortal gold bars at most. So expensive? Some newbie pet trainers who had just entered the profession didn't quite understand the market. Will it be enough to eat? For a Flame Tsunami Hound of this size, eating 2 is usually enough. One spirit butterfly weighs 50 kilograms. So heavy, pushing large butterfly weighs 32 kilograms. Loopy Toad's information was then displayed. Name, Dog 2 Grade, Akit Inu Grade, 3rd Grade Weight, 20 kg Length. Height, 0, 68 m. Habits, Buddha like everyone. The duel hadn't really started yet, but a lot of people weren't optimistic about the green-furred dog in the field. Spirit beasts of the same type often had different sizes that determined their auras. And the point was that they had never seen this green-furred dog's pet trainer before. He didn't seem to be very famous. Hearing that someone was trying to find out Wei Ji's identity, Xia Fei and Yu Yang broke out in a sweat and whispered to each other. "Is Shishizu here? Who knows, he's probably short on money again. But if Shishizu is so awesome, why is he so unpopular? You probably don't know, but when Shishizu went to battle in the past, he always had a weasel with him. Without the weasel, Shishizu's sense of existence plummeted. Actually, it's Shishizu who keeps a low profile. A big part of the reason why he's short on money is that he doesn't want to participate in those fake commercials. A few years ago, that red hair medicinal wine company asked Shishizu to endorse it. When Shishizu found out that the wine contained the bone of a spirit leopard, which is a state-level second-class protected spirit beast, Shishizu was so angry, he was later suppressed for a period of time because of this. At that moment, someone suddenly remembered that these two people were still there, so they turned to look at them. Teacher Xia Fei and Teacher Yu Yang, what do you think? Which side do you think will win? In the end, neither of them said anything, and just shrugged and turned to leave. For them, there was already nothing to see in this match. They didn't know how strong that green-furred dog was, but since Wei Ji had taken a liking to it, its fighting strength definitely wasn't weak. Moreover, they had heard rumors that Wei Ji was going to help a friend participate in the competition, but the problem was that they had no idea that Wei Ji was going to participate in the same event as them. A match between SSR-level pet trainers and their granduncle master at that. What was there to see? With a whistle, the duel officially began. Standing behind Loopy Toad, Wei Ji carefully observed the Flame Tsunami Dog's movements and tried to find a flaw as he calmly analyzed the situation. Brother dog, be careful. This Flame Tsunami Dog can use a flame-throwing spell, but it takes a long time to cast it. My suggestion is to attack quickly and end the battle quickly. This was probably Loopy Toad's first time fighting its own kind. It paid close attention to the flame tsunami dog's every move, and in the end, the dog snorted disdainfully. This was beast language, and only Loopy Toad could understand it. However, its attitude was so obvious that even many of the cultivators watching could tell. Loopy Toad was being despised by this flame tsunami dog. Boof, boof, boof. The flame tsunami dog let out a battle howl, and Loopy Toad felt a strong wind sweep past it. This was the sound wave slash that came with the battle howl, and it was so fast that even many of the cultivators present didn't have time to react. Loopy Toad didn't know if it was because of its recent training with sheep and Jinka, but not only did it feel that this flame tsunami dog's howl was weak, this sound wave slash was also very slow. Loopy Toad felt that the time it took for this sound wave slash to float past it was enough for it to take a piss. It was very obvious that this flame tsunami dog, Mad Wave 3 Blades, was testing Loopy Toad's strength with contempt and provocation. But when he saw that Loopy Toad had actually easily dodged the sound wave slash, Mad Wolf 3 Blades' expression changed slightly. Wei Ji was a little unhappy. "Brother dog, we won't lose. You howl too. Howl back." But Loopy Toad nodded inwardly. That was exactly what it wanted. At that moment, everyone's eyes were focused on the green-furred dog in the field. After the latter got into position, it suddenly looked up and roared. "Oh, wait. Oh, everyone, Wei Ji was extremely satisfied. As expected of Brother Dog. Its howl was very distinctive. Chapter 568. This roar seemed somewhat comical, causing the flame tsunami hound named Mad Wave 3 Blades to reveal a look of disgust. However, just as the roar faded away, Mad Wave 3 Blades' expression suddenly changed. For some reason, this green-furred dog, which was completely disproportionate to its size and which it had viewed as weak at first glance, suddenly made it feel a trace of fear. This was mental oppression? Mad Wave's 3 Blades did its best to remain calm, but it discovered that under the green-furred dog's roar, its body began to tremble uncontrollably like a ghostly animal. The flame tsunami dog's pet trainer realized that something wasn't right. 3 Blades. You have to stay calm. Think about it. If you win the competition this time, your master will buy you a spirit butterfly venerable as a gift. You'll use your favorite crispy fried tempura. Spirit butterfly venerable, that was the fattest spirit butterfly in Spirit Butterfly Village, and also the mother of all spirit butterflies, which was why it had such a special name. And there was only one in each nest. So a spirit butterfly venerable was very expensive, selling for about 50,000 immortal gold bars. But the meat was delicious, and Mad Wave's 3 Blades had been drooling for a long time. As long as the head was removed, a spirit butterfly venerable's protein was 200 times that of an ordinary spirit butterfly. Thrice reckless. You have to hold on, thrice reckless. In order for your master to buy a spirit butterfly venerable, wrap it in crispy fried tempura, and then eat it one bite at a time. You have to hold on. It decided that it couldn't admit defeat in front of a hybrid autumn green-furred dog. But it was still trembling uncontrollably. Thrice Reckless began to realize that this roar wasn't ordinary, but had directly stimulated its spirit and soul. This was a kind of fear that came from the depths of its heart. And it wasn't simple mental oppression. How terrifying! It was clearly a dog that was only the size of a palm, but after that roar, it felt that the green-furred dog's eyes were infinitely enlarging, as if its gaze could penetrate the depths of its soul, as if the heavens were pressing down on it. This dog, what was its origin? So scary, woof. Thrice Reckless started to whimper in a low voice. His tears were already flowing down uncontrollably, and he suddenly started to cry uncontrollably. This was because he realized that he no longer had any chance of winning this match, and the most important thing was, he couldn't eat his beloved venerable spirit butterfly anymore. The more Thrice Reckless cried, the sadder he became. In the end, he fell flat on his back, covered his eyes with his paws, and burst into tears. Scared to tears? This happened so suddenly that everyone in front of the big screen was stunned. Even the commentator was shocked. What's going on? Why would such a huge flame tsunami hound be scared to tears by a mongrel Akita? The commentator was shocked. Contestant 3 Reckless, can you still fight? Please bring out your brave and fearless fighting spirit. The competition could not end like this. This is a live broadcast. 3 Reckless covered his dog face. I can't anymore, woof. Oh, I really can't anymore. Hurry up and find someone to carry me away, woof, otherwise it'll really be too late, woof. The commentator was very angry. Contestant 3 Reckless, please bring out the fighting spirit of a contract spirit beast. But just as the commentator finished speaking, a fountain of water shot up into the sky amidst 3 Reckless cries. Contestant 3 Reckless was so scared that he peed his pants. 3 Reckless tears flowed like a broken dam. I already said I can't anymore, woof. Wei Ji and Loopy Toad. Loopy Toad was in despair. Had it not controlled its strength well just now? It shouldn't have. But why had the flame tsunami hound been scared to this extent? Loopy Toad withdrew its aura and slowly walked toward 3 Reckless. It was as if Thrice Reckless had seen a primordial beast approaching him, and he actually fled the arena with a long stream of tears streaming down his face. This was probably the legendary running away in tears. The commentator had a helpless expression on his face. Because contestant 3 Reckless has lost his ability to fight, contestant Dog 2 wins this match. In the players' lounge after the match, Wei Ji watched the replay of the match and was puzzled no matter how he thought about it. Brother Dog, what did you do just now? He clearly thought that Brother Dog's ooh was very cute. But why had it scared the flame tsunami hound to this extent? Loopy Toad, I don't know, I'm also in despair, Wei Ji frowned. If Brother Dog didn't use its full strength, but was still able to scare this flame tsunami hound to this extent, I'm wondering if it was because of an external object. For example, a magic treasure? In general, there were no restrictions on the use of treasures in the competition between spirit beasts. Spirit beasts could use their own treasures during the battle. However, under normal circumstances, there was no need to use such treasures, so there was no opportunity to use them. Loopy Toad was blank at Wei Ji's reminder. Could it be because of the Bone King? Although Fatty Luo had already refined the Bone King into a magic treasure, its original material was Dog Saint's bone. Loopy Toad opened its mouth and took out the emerald green Bone King with the swallowing spell. I think it's probably because of this. This magic weapon was refined from the Bone King that you gave me back then. Because Wei Ji and it were very familiar with each other, and it was Wei Ji who had originally given it the Bone King, Loopy Toad felt that there was no need to hide it at all. Brother Dog refined the Bone King into a magic treasure? Wei Ji was also blank when he saw the Bone King. To be honest, the vice president had a lot of treasures in his collection, but Wei Ji had only taken a fancy to this one back then because he felt that it wasn't simple. He hadn't expected that he would actually pick up a treasure. Wei Ji sked. This bone's origin isn't simple. Maybe it's the bone of some high-class spirit beast, and Brother Dog has refined it into a magic treasure. Brother Dog carries it with him everywhere, which is why the other spirit beasts are so afraid of it. Loopy Toad basically agreed with Wei Ji's answer. It was most likely because of the Bone King that the flame tsunami hound had been so scared. This was the bone of Dog Saint, the supreme leader of dogs. If even a little of its aura seeped out, it would probably intimidate other dog-type spirit beasts of the same species. But Loopy Toad currently didn't know whether the Bone King had the same deterrent effect on other spirit beasts, since it was possible that it was only effective on dog-type spirit beasts. Loopy Toad decided to experiment a little later in the fight. What are the characteristics of the Bone King now? Wei Ji asked. Whatever it wants, Loopy Toad replied. It has a very unique spatial characteristic. Wei Ji sighed with emotion, and at the same time, a lot of ideas popped into his head. Brother Dog, can you show off the Bone King in the fight later? I want to do an experiment. Wei Ji looked at the final Spirit Beast showdown. Chapter 569. An hour later, everyone was already preparing for the highly anticipated final of the Spirit Beast battle. The finalists for the championship match were the same as Wei Ji and Loopy Toad had predicted at the beginning. Loopy Toad had initially thought that the two remaining spirit beasts in the championship match would be Jinbei the Golden-Backed Gorilla, Aluminum Small Fish the Land Shark, and God Vision High School's Fighting Lion. The only unexpected thing was that God Vision High School's Shao Clan's Fighting Lion lost to Reliance High School's Brutal Land Shark, Aluminum Small Fish. And most importantly, it had been a crushing defeat. When Loopy Toad and Wei Ji came out of the arena, they heard the pet trainers on the side discussing it. That land shark is a little scary. At first, I thought it would be a 50-50 situation on both sides. I never thought that the Fighting Lion would die so quickly. The Fighting Lion handpicked by the Shao clan was actually one-sidedly beaten by a land shark. But that land shark seemed to be eating something before the match. Could it be a stimulant? I don't think it was. One pet trainer shook his head. As they talked about this, the results of the appraisal of what Aluminum Small Fish had eaten before the match directly appeared on the big screen. What Aluminum Small Fish had eaten just now was a bag of potato chips. Loopy Toad was alarmed. How could foodies fight nowadays? Potato chips? All the pet trainers were stupefied and speechless. If it was a stimulant, it would definitely be strictly forbidden, but who knew that a spirit beast would be so obsessed with snacks? Back in the players' lounge, Wei Ji began to analyze. It seems that this land shark has a very special constitution. It should be a type of irritable stress syndrome. Spirit beasts with this kind of constitution are quite rare. What kind of constitution is it? Loopy Toad asked. You can think of it as a constitution that excites excessively when it comes to ordinary food. Usually, in this excited state, its strength will soar above its original grade, and it will display formidable strength that is completely inconsistent with its grade. Furthermore, even if this kind of constitution enters an excited state, it won't affect the body at all, and instead helps develop the tenacity of the meridians in the body. Overall, it's a pretty good constitution. Wei Ji added, but spirit beasts with this kind of constitution are usually not easy to tame. Not only can they eat, they're also very expensive, and most people can't afford to keep them. Loopy Toad sweated in its heart. No matter how much it could it eat more than Little Silver? But after listening to Wei Ji's analysis, Loopy Toad looked forward more and more to the showdown with this land shark. Loopy Toad's current strength just happened to be at second class. If this land shark could burst forth with the strength of second class through its physique, Loopy Toad instantly felt that it could look forward to this showdown a little. Roughly 5 minutes later, Wei Ji and Loopy Toad entered the venue again. This time, Loopy Toad had to face two enemies. In addition to Jinbei, the Golden-Backed Gorilla, there was also that land shark Aluminum Small Fish who was frantically eating potato chips. Wei Ji greeted the Golden-Backed Gorilla's pet trainer. Good luck, Xiaoxia. Loopy Toad. Little Cloud has come out. If Little Gang comes out, they would be able to form a team of 3 to collect medals. Xia Fei. To be honest, Xia Fei had been rejecting the idea up until this moment. He had no chance of winning with a 4th-grade gorilla. This was simply displaying one's slight skill in front of an expert. So when Wei Ji greeted him like this, Xia Fei's heart couldn't help but tremble and his face paled. It was due to nervousness and fear. A lot of pet trainers were watching this scene on the big screen. By the way, who on earth is this green-furred dog's pet trainer? Why don't I remember him? This person actually calls teacher Xia Fei Little Cloud, as if they're very familiar with each other. Look, teacher Xia Fei's expression has changed, he's probably angry. The highly anticipated showdown began with the earth-shaking sound of a virtual gong. Loopy Toad started to observe the land shark. Because it was a female land shark, it wasn't too big, but was still 3 meters long. It was covered in black scales from head to toe, which were evolved from the land shark's skin to protect itself on land. The scales would disappear in the water. In addition, the land shark had 2 legs. Loopy Toad thought that its overall appearance was a little similar to the mermaid drawn by the police in the movie The Mermaid. At that moment, the land shark Aluminum Small Fish stopped swallowing and casually tossed the bag of potato chips to one side. Then, with a shake of its legs, It plunged into the ground like a meteorite directly between Dog 2 and the golden-backed gorilla. "You two, surrender and you'll be spared physical pain." After saying that, Aluminum Small Fish looked at its pet trainer. "And you, what are you standing around for? Hurry up and order takeout. This old lady wants to eat potato chips. This showdown is going to end soon. Let's order first." Everyone was stupefied. When all was said and done, this was a spirit beast with irritable stress syndrome. The pet trainer had no right to speak at all, Puiji snorted, completely unconcerned about the land shark's provocation. What a cute little shark. But while it's called a land shark, it's actually more advantageous in a water battle. "Waterfish, don't you like water?" The land shark didn't listen to its pet trainer at all, and after being dazed for a moment, it straightaway became furious. How dare they look down on it? Even if it didn't draw on the power of the water, it was enough. The land shark used its short and lean legs to shake, and immediately, a wave of impatient energy was transmitted from the ground, exploding on the stage. The golden-backed gorilla's pet trainer, Xia Fei, immediately said, "Jinbei, get out of the way." Unfortunately, because of the golden-backed gorilla's huge size and the fact that this energy had come from underground was really unexpected, it couldn't dodge at all and was stabbed in the back by this energy that had pierced through the ground. It covered its butt and howled. However, the land shark didn't care about this fourth-level gorilla that couldn't even speak. It was planning to watch Buttface make a fool of himself, but it never expected that Buttface's reaction would be faster than it had imagined. At the moment when the energy was transmitted, Buttface stepped on the ground with his dog paw and immediately intercepted the force, completely canceling it out. While the land shark was stupefied, its opponent's counterattack came. "Brother dog, use your magic treasure to take it down." Because Wei Ji had said before that he wanted to experiment with the Bone King, Loopy Toad very cooperatively took it out. The moment the Emerald Green Bone Club appeared, there were cries of surprise from all around. Although they didn't know where this Emerald Green Bone Club came from, anyone with a discerning eye could see that it wasn't simple. Because the moment Loopy Toad took it out, both the golden-backed gorilla and the irritable land shark subconsciously took several steps back. The land shark stared at this Emerald Green Bone Club in indescribable shock. What was going on? Chapter 570. This was an instinctive reaction that could only be detected after sensing a powerful threat. It was a completely subconscious reaction. Sure enough, it was like this. After this test, Loopy Toad was basically certain. The Bone King's deterrent power wasn't just effective against dog-type spirit beasts. It probably had a suppressive effect on all spirit beasts. The suppression on dog-type spirit beasts was even more obvious. After reaching this conclusion, Wei Ji and Loopy Toad were full of confidence. "Wei Ji, brother dog, go. This is a rare opportunity." The rare opportunity Wei Ji was talking about was a chance for Loopy Toad to familiarize itself with using a magic treasure. Increasing the rapport between magic treasures was usually only effective in actual combat. There was a saying that true knowledge came from practice, and this principle was the same in cultivation. Loopy Toad was very cautious in the face of the land shark in front of it, because this was indeed an evenly matched opponent. The land shark's aura, which had stimulated its potential thanks to its special physique, was completely different from the third class described in the information. It was already close to second class or even peak second class. This was completely different from when it had faced Sheep and Jinka. Loopy Toad actually felt a hint of excitement for battle. "Ow!" Dog 2 howled and directly leaped high into the air with the Bone King in hand before smashing it down. Aluminum Small Fish was taken aback by such a quick reaction and this unknown emerald green bone magic treasure. Fortunately, in its excited state, its reaction was very quick and fierce, and it immediately tried to use its steel tail to block the attack before waiting for an opportunity to counterattack. However, the Bone King was, in the end, a third-class holy weapon. Given Loopy Toad's current realm, it might not be able to display the full power of a third-class holy weapon, but even if it could only display 60% of its power, it was still extraordinary. The moment the Bone King and the land shark's steel tail collided, Aluminum small fish felt a tremendous force crush down on it, along with a burning pain. What on earth was this emerald green bone? Aluminum small fish couldn't imagine how a dog whose data indicated it was only third class could have such a terrifying magic treasure, and how Loopy Toad could actually control it so steadily. In fact, under normal circumstances, it was impossible for a Grade 2 spirit beast to control a Grade 3 saint artifact. When spirit chi was poured into a Grade 3 saint artifact, the saint artifact would definitely produce feedback. This feedback was something that a Grade 2 spirit beast's body could not withstand. But the point was that Loopy Toad had the power of heavenly Tao in its body. This power of heavenly Tao came from evil sword gods, 10-meter sword circle, sword Tao power. Although Buttface hadn't completely mastered it, it was precisely this force that could help him suppress the feedback force of the holy artifact and help him control it. It was precisely because of this suppression that when the Bone King transformed into a glove, it resonated with the power of Sword Tao in Loopy Toad's body, which upgraded the glove into a spiked glove that contained the power of Sword Tao. But Loopy Toad had no intention of using the power of Sword Tao in this battle at all, otherwise it would actually be a little unfair. What it wanted to do now was to test the performance of its Bone King in its normal state and to see how much power its basic dog skills could exert in a battle of the same level. The land shark aluminum small fish started to become a little serious. As it dodged Loopy Toad's attack, it couldn't help glancing at the pet trainer behind it. "What are you spacing out for? Analyze the situation." The pet trainer was also startled. Loopy Toad hadn't listened to him at all before, but now it was turning hostile faster than flipping a book. A lot of people saw this scene, and the battle was also being broadcasted in real time to all the major high schools. Number 60 High School was supposed to have an ideological and political class at this time, but because of the start of the Battle of Spirit Beasts, all the teachers stopped classes and started to broadcast the battle according to the school's arrangement. Seeing that unruly land shark actually start to ask its pet trainer for help, Little Peanut couldn't help sking. "I never thought our Loopy Toad would be so awesome. To be able to force Reliance High School's aluminum small fish to that extent. But Loopy Toad's cultivation speed is a little too fast. It hasn't been that long, but it's already so strong." Most of the students in Grade 1, Class 3 didn't doubt Loopy Toad's strength. They were just shocked by Dog 2's cultivation speed. That was because before Dog 2 had officially become a dog, he had been a Demon King. Although he had been killed by Senior Ajwa as soon as he had landed, a Demon King was still a tribal commander-level figure in the demon race and had been through hundreds of battles. Dopigwa chuckled. "Looks like my family's fodder is pretty good. Also, Loopy Toad has a good relationship with this little uncle of mine. My little uncle was originally an SSR-level pet trainer, so he might give Loopy Toad some pointers in cultivation in private." Hearing this, a lot of people in class nodded. This explanation was actually quite reasonable. At the same time, Wang Ling secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Otherwise, he really wouldn't be able to explain how Loopy Toad had become so strong in such a short time after being fostered in his home. But what's that magic treasure in Loopy Toad's hand? "Did your little uncle give it to you?" Lotus Sun asked. "That's right." Dopigwa nodded. "My little uncle did tell me before that he had given Dog 2 a bone as a gift, but I never thought it would be a magic treasure." Lotus Sun, "Do you know its grade?" Dopigwa shook his head. "I don't know, I'll ask him later." Superchin smiled. "I think the light effect of this bone is pretty heaven-defying. It's like the light effect of a web-based Dragon Slayer sword. Maybe it's a holy weapon." Wang Ling, Dopigwa spread his hands. "Don't joke around. My little uncle has to raise so many spirit beasts, he's short on money himself. At most, he'll give him a spirit weapon. He can't afford a holy weapon at all." "I was just joking." Superchin spread his hands. Superchin pillowed his head. "But your little uncle is an SSR-level pet trainer, so why do he know so few people?" Dopigwa, "He's usually more low-key, but the main thing is that whenever he participates in a competition, he always comes in second place. Who would remember second place? Also, he didn't bring that weasel with him, so of course no one remembers him." At the mention of the weasel, everyone in Grade 1, Class 3, including the political science teacher on the dais, looked as if they had suddenly realized something. So it's him. Wang Ling was also startled. It turned out that the weasel's fame had all gone to him. Elsewhere, the battle in the field was still going on. Dog 2 and the land shark were having a great time fighting. Both sides attacked each other back and forth, completely ignoring the golden-backed gorilla on the side. The commentator was also speechless at this scene. Xia Fei really couldn't take it anymore. Jinbei, you go. Jinbei plopped down on the ground and turned to look at Xia Fei. Because it couldn't speak, Jinbei could only sign. It then looked at Dog 2 and the land shark aluminum small fish, who were fighting in front of it, and finally raised its plump butt to slap it. Xia Fei? The commentator immediately understood. Contestant Jinbei means that when immortals fight, go my ass. The corner of Xia Fei's mouth twitched. You have to go. Even if you lose, you have to go. Jinbei looked at Xia Fei and thumped its chest. The commentator, contestant Jinbei says that if you F***K again, she'll beat your chest with her little fists. Chapter 571. The golden-backed gorilla was a spirit beast whose strength lay in its coarse skin, thick flesh, and resistance to beatings. Furthermore, once it fell into a prolonged battle, it would enter a berserk state with extremely strong explosive power, so it really wasn't weak at all. But in the end, a fourth-class spirit beast was a fourth-class spirit beast, and the gap between third-class and fourth-class spirit beasts was actually very big. The third-class Crystal King Scorpion from before had been purely unlucky and had been countered by nature. The most important thing was that the land shark, which had activated its violent physique, and the green-furred dog, which had taken out an emerald green bone club of unknown origin, now had overall combat strength of second class on average, which instantly made the golden-backed gorilla feel despair. With a gap of 2 grades, it had no chance of winning this match at all. Since that was the case, it might as well sit back and watch the show. At the very least, it would suffer less physical pain. In any case, Jinbei was already very satisfied with defeating the Crystal King Scorpion. No matter how bad this match was, it was still the rear guard. Honestly speaking, Jinbei's reaction put Xia Fei, who was a pet trainer, on the spot, and he was a little disappointed. In fact, Jinbei couldn't be completely blamed for this. The main reason was that in this era of peace, the bestiality of contracted spirit beasts had generally weakened to a certain extent. Furthermore, regular spirit beast duels weren't fights to the death, so the spirit beasts which specifically challenged various spirit beast dojos had long since lost the awareness of being wild beasts. Unfortunately, Xia Fei wasn't Jinbei's owner. If Jinbei's owner was here, he might be able to order it around by relying on the power of the contract. Xia Fei frowned as he looked at Wei Ji. What would Marshal Granduncle do at this time? Wei Ji actually didn't give too many pointers, but carefully observed the changes in the Bone King. The more he looked, the more he felt that this thing wasn't simple. In fact, Wei Ji had never expected Loopy Toad to actually think of refining the Bone King into such a magic treasure. Furthermore, it had been very successful, and it had the spatial, follow your heart, attribute, which could change into whatever shape Loopy Toad wanted. After a few rounds, Aluminum Small Fish, the land shark, gradually began to feel a little tired. It had never expected a mere green-furred dog to be so difficult to deal with. I'm going to get serious. Aluminum Small Fish stared at Loopy Toad. Thinking this, the land shark took out a bag of myrtles and poured them all into its mouth. Loopy Toad stared blankly at this scene. It turned out that potato chips weren't the only snack that could stimulate this land shark's excitement. At that moment, the commentator guessed that a lot of people would raise doubts, so he immediately said, according to the rules of the competition, snacks are not prohibited items. In fact, it was already equivalent to a stimulant, but because there were no rules in the competition, this type of spirit beast with a special excitement physique was able to skirt the line. In fact, in previous years, when the Spirit Beast Appraisal Center held a general meeting, there had been people who proposed to set up restrictions and rules for spirit beasts with special constitutions. However, it had never been approved, and it was said that it was still in the review stage. After eating the bag of snacks, Aluminum's small fish curbed its spirit energy. The snacks it had eaten in just a few seconds had already given it a sense of excitement, but it didn't immediately attack and instead jumped far away from Loopy Toad. Loopy Toad didn't immediately attack. It actually wanted to see what this cute little land shark was up to. Aluminum's small fish took a deep breath, and its entire body began to inflate like a balloon. The golden-backed gorilla sensed that something was wrong. This was clearly the prelude to an all-out attack. Golden Bell Shield. Jinbei shouted inwardly and actually took out its magic treasure, because it realized that this was going to be a large-scale group attack, and what it needed to do now was to stabilize itself. This was a fight between immortals, and Jinbei didn't want to get involved, nor did it want to get hurt, and even more, it didn't want to be directly knocked out of the arena. It was so big, it would actually be a little humiliating if it was knocked out of the arena in one move by these two little things. Although, it was already quite humiliating now, as Aluminum's small fish continuously sucked in air, its body grew larger and larger until it finally swelled up into a huge black balloon. Brother Dog, be careful, this should be a sound wave spell attack. Stabilize yourself, don't let yourself fall out of the arena. Seeing this change, Wei Ji immediately relied on his rich commanding experience and on-the-spot experience to guess this land shark's next move, and he immediately warned Loopy Toad. Whether it was him or Loopy Toad, both of them could feel a tremendous amount of spirit power gathering inside this land shark's body. Wei Ji had already instilled his spiritual power into his ears and covered them with his hands. Burp. In the next moment, an earth-shattering burp whistled through the air like a tide, accompanied by a powerful wind that caused the entire arena to shake. The commentator in the booth was incomparably shocked as he watched this scene. This was because this sound wave attack was so powerful that even the glass outside the commentary room had already cracked a little. The enormous burp shook the world, and it was as if countless blades of wind were blowing in the air, lifting up all the bricks and tiles in the arena. All the spirit power in this shrill cry was concentrated on Loopy Toad. Loopy Toad stabbed the Bone King into the arena and gripped it tightly, afraid that it would be sent flying out of the arena by the impact of this powerful sound wave. Compared with the golden-backed gorilla, it was really too light, and at that moment, it was only relying on brute force to support this impact. Everyone was stupefied at this momentum. The golden-backed gorilla sweated profusely in its heart. Fortunately, it had been quick to take out the magic weapon Golden Bell Shield, otherwise it would have been sent flying right away. Because at that moment, even inside the Golden Bell Shield, Jinbei felt an indescribably powerful pressure that made its body fall back uncontrollably, and it had no choice but to lean forward with all its might. It's a little powerful. Loopy Toad narrowed its eyes and marveled in its heart. This sound wave spell was at least grade 4. The sound wave lasted for a long time and was very powerful. Furthermore, it came wave after wave, and the most frightening thing was that it was created by burping. The entire sound wave lasted for over 40 seconds, and it wasn't until the land shark let out all the air in its body that it calmed down. However, at that moment, the arena had already been turned into a mess by the sound wave just now. Loopy Toad was bewildered. What kind of sound wave spell is this? Wei Ji had investigated this land shark before, and he couldn't help narrowing his eyes as he said, I've heard before that this land shark has a self-created sound wave spell that lasts for a long time and is very powerful. It has the destructive power of an explosion and can also set off endless wind. It looks like this sound wave spell was created by it. Loopy Toad, does it have a name? Chapter 572. A self-created spell, floating waves belch, and a grade 4 one at that. It looked like this land shark wasn't simple. Not only did it have a special constitution, its identity wasn't simple either. In fact, Loopy Toad had vaguely sensed this from the very beginning of the fight. This land shark's bloodline wasn't simple. It was probably a hybrid, but Loopy Toad didn't know what kind of bloodline it was. It was a pity that little Masterling wasn't here now. Otherwise he would have used the Great Blood Origin spell, to sense this land shark, and he would have been able to list out the bloodlines of the 8 nations one by one. Dopigua's parrot, Dopigua, was a super hybrid parrot. Although it wasn't weak, it couldn't control its strength very well because it was a hybrid, and it often had to soak in medicinal baths. Thus, Dopigua hadn't brought it to school during this time. According to the information in the Spirit Beasts section of the Cultivation Encyclopedia, land shark's attributes were actually quite balanced, but this land shark gave Loopy Toad a completely different feeling. Its strength and durability were particularly outstanding. Although this was also due to its special constitution, as an opponent, Dog 2 could indeed sense that this land shark was extraordinary. The fact that it could create its own spirit technique was already proof that this land shark's intelligence was very high, far above that of its peers. Loopy Toad frowned. To be honest, it was now a little suspicious whether this land shark was in the same situation as it was. For example, some remnant soul had been integrated into a body. That was because Loopy Toad felt a sense of familiarity when it had fought this land shark. Of course, it hadn't sensed the slightest bit of demon chi from this land shark. It looked like it had to deal with it carefully. Loopy Toad pondered in its heart. At that moment, the arena was a mess. After the land shark's self-created grade 4 sound wave spell swept through, almost all the bricks in the arena had been sent flying. Although the focus of the sound wave was on Loopy Toad, the spell's area of effect was scattered in all directions. With the land shark at the center, everything was collapsing, and the ground cracked like a spider web in all directions, looking very sinister. Aluminum small fish gasped for air. At the same time, it was a little surprised. It was full of confidence that its attack was enough to send this weak green-furred dog flying. Its sonic power had been tested. In a situation where the opponent didn't have any defensive measures, it could directly rely on the power of this 4th-tier sonic spell to send a 500 kilograms object flying. However, this green-furred dog actually managed to persevere. Like a nail, it used that emerald green bone to firmly stick to the ground. It was clearly such a thin and small dog, but it actually contained such a huge amount of power. At this moment, Aluminum Small Fish was deep in thought. This green-furred dog's origin was not simple. At least, it was not as easy to deal with as it seemed. If it was just a pure hybrid between an Akita and another spirit dog, it would never be this strong. For a time, both sides sunk into silence after the attack and defense of the Soundwave spell. At number 60 high school, grade 1, class 3 was in high spirits. Most of them could see that this land shark wasn't easy to deal with. Can our Loopy Toad win? Little Peanut was suddenly a little nervous. A lot of people in class thought that their family's dog too would win easily, but never thought that this land shark would actually be so troublesome. It was hard to say what the outcome of the battle would be, since no one knew what this land shark, which could only create its own 4th-tier sonic spell and was full of all kinds of surprises, would do. Super Chin frowned. He felt that this land shark's background definitely wasn't simple. Throughout the entire process, Wang Ling had been silently watching the battle. After seeing the land shark's self-created sonic spell, his expression didn't change in the slightest. Dopigua nudged Wang Ling next to him with his elbow. Wang Ling, do you think Dog 2 can win? Wang Ling didn't say anything else, and just gave a light before he actually took out a 3-5 scroll from his desk and started to look through the questions. For Wang Ling, there had actually been no suspense in this match from the beginning. But at that moment, something changed in the arena again. Aluminum Smallfish's gaze suddenly made the golden-backed gorilla, which had been ignored all along, stand on end. Jinbei wanted to cry, but had no tears to shed. So, after a fruitless battle with that green-furred dog, was the land shark going to start with itself first? However, to everyone's surprise, Aluminum Smallfish actually walked over to Jinbei and looked up at it. You're Jinbei, right? The golden-backed gorilla shrank inside the golden bell shield and didn't dare move, and just nodded silently. Aluminum Smallfish smiled evilly. Because the land shark's mouth was bigger, when it grinned, this evil smile looked even more ferocious, and the golden-backed gorilla's hair stood on end. Jinbei looked at Aluminum Smallfish and howled suspiciously. This was spirit beast language, which meant, "What do you want?" Aluminum Smallfish's words were astonishing. How about we work together? Let's get rid of that green-furred dog first. The golden-backed gorilla's eyes lit up. It hadn't expected this irascible land shark to actually come up with this plan, which actually had all sorts of advantages and no disadvantages for it. Originally, it would only be able to take third place, but if it could get rid of this green-furred dog, taking second place would also be wonderful. At the same time, this scene also surprised everyone else. No one had thought that this irascible land shark would actually take the initiative to seek cooperation. Xia Fei broke out in a sweat. He had been completely ignored. Why did contract spirit beasts nowadays like to act on their own as long as their masters weren't around? Wei Ji wasn't very nervous and just chuckled. Brother dog, it looks like this little fish really wants to get rid of you. Loopy Toad wasn't afraid at all, and instead felt very excited. No hurry, let's see what it wants to do first. What should I do? The golden-backed gorilla gestured to Aluminum Small Fish, still speaking in spirit beast language. Lend me your golden bell shield, said Aluminum Small Fish. The golden-backed gorilla obediently handed over its golden bell shield, completely unaware of what Aluminum Small Fish wanted to do. In the end, in the next second, Aluminum Small Fish, who had taken the magic golden bell shield, started to suck in air again. It was clear that it wanted to belch again. But why had Aluminum Small Fish borrowed the golden-backed gorilla's golden bell shield? Everyone was puzzled no matter how they thought about it. But in the next moment, Aluminum Small Fish's steel tail actually ruthlessly smashed the top of the golden bell shield and directly sent it flying. Jinbei wanted to cry but had no tears when it saw the magic treasure broken. You, brother dog, watch out. At that moment, Wei Ji suddenly guessed what Aluminum Small Fish was going to do. Loopy Toad? As soon as Wei Ji said this, sure enough, Aluminum Small Fish had the golden-backed gorilla put the broken top of the golden bell shield on its shoulder and turned it into a simple sound amplification magic artifact. Wei Ji, this is the ultimate version of the floating waves belch? Megaphone. Chapter 573. Loopy Toad frowned slightly at the enhanced sound wave spell. In fact, it was already fully aware of the power of this spell. When the golden-backed gorilla had lifted the golden bell shield from the top of the slope, Loopy Toad had already realized the land shark's true intentions. It knew that Aluminum Small Fish wanted to use the ultimate version of the sound wave spell to send it flying, and Loopy Toad estimated that this big horn was more than 10 times more powerful than the normal version of the floating waves belch. The sound wave spell that the land shark had used before had only been a large-scale group attack. However, after using the golden-backed gorilla's golden bell shield as a megaphone, the originally scattered sound wave spirit power had been condensed for a brief moment. The original power had been increased by several times or even more than 10 times to form a powerful single attack. Spirit beasts like the land shark were originally proud creatures with an extremely strong desire to win, but this land shark in front of Dog 2 gave it a completely different feeling. It could be said that Loopy Toad was fully prepared for this bighorn attack without the slightest bit of negligence. This was a rare opportunity for actual combat, and Loopy Toad actually enjoyed it quite a lot. On the other side, Wei Ji also took out his defensive magic treasure, a folding fan, which was a powerful defensive magic treasure. With just a light wave, Wei Ji's folding fan turned into a powerful barrier in front of him. This was used to withstand the impact of the battle between the spirit beasts. Even if Aluminum Small Fish's sound wave attack hadn't really started, Wei Ji could still sense the imminent pressure from his past experience. This was simply too exaggerated. Wei Ji had never thought that the land shark would actually be able to exert such oppressive force. Aluminum Small Fish was just relying on its special physique, eating snacks to make itself excited. It was able to exert strength that was completely inconsistent with its grade. In the next moment, with the power of the ultimate version of the floating waves belch, bighorn, the originally invisible sound waves actually seemed to turn into solid ripples, and everyone could actually see each one clearly. It was actually so powerful. A lot of people were shaken in their hearts. To be able to turn invisible sound waves into solid power was enough to prove how powerful the spellcaster was. Under normal circumstances, this kind of power was impossible to achieve. This shot combined with Loud Muzzle's special power allowed the land shark to unleash its full power. Because of the Golden Bell shield, the originally large-scale sound wave attack turned into a single-target destructive attack. Most of the power of the sound wave was concentrated on Loopy Toad. Standing next to the land shark, Jinbei the golden-back gorilla only received a small amount of the aftershock. This huge momentum shocked everyone who was watching the battle. The power of the megaphone was like a nuclear bomb. It shot out a huge energy cannon, like a destructive ray, destroying everything in front of it. The entire capital zone was almost blown away by aluminum small fish's sound wave. Endless rubble flew up, like countless stars floating in the universe. The offensive of this megaphone could be described as devastating, as if everything had been annihilated and turned into flying ash in a short moment. As Loopy Toad turned to ash, boundless astral winds howled fiercely with the tremendous power of 10 million horses, putting Loopy Toad's body to great test. Aluminum small fish was quite confident in this attack. It rarely used such a big killer move. However, the strength of this green-furred dog in front of it was beyond its expectations once again. After this powerful sound wave attack, this green-furred dog actually didn't move at all. Aluminum small fish grit its teeth. Was it looking down on it? Or had its attack not had the slightest effect at all? The land shark aluminum small fish couldn't believe the scene in front of it at all. What kind of character was this green-furred dog on Earth? While aluminum small fish was feeling endlessly incredulous, it actually noticed that the emerald green dog beating stick in the green-furred dog's hand had actually changed a little. This proved that its attack just now had indeed been effective. Unfortunately, however, the land shark realized that this emerald green bone stick of unknown origin had actually become even more solid under its ultimate version of the sound wave spell. Then an even more astonishing scene happened, because Loopy Toad had actually broken the Bone King in two along with the cracks that had been created by the sound waves. But even so, the Bone King's power still hadn't changed much, which delighted Wei Ji on the battlefield. Wei Ji, brother dog. Loopy Toad, Wei Ji, just in time, your bone stick has now been broken in two, hurry up and think of a way to transform. Loopy Toad thought about it carefully. In fact, it had no idea whether the Bone King would still be more powerful after being broken in two. But curiosity drove Dog 2 to make its final judgment. It listened to Wei Ji's instructions and started to fantasize about this broken Bone King turning into what it wanted. After several dozen seconds or so, Wei Ji's eyes suddenly lit up. Brother Dog. Loopy Toad. Wei Ji, hurry up and use the nunchaku, hehehe. Loopy Toad. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Night Chief's investigation was still going on. As the president of Night Chief, Night Ghost Spirit Emperor felt that he had suffered unprecedented shame and humiliation. He was the dignified leader of the number 1 foreign force, but an inexplicable magic treasure had actually smashed off one of his arms. Not only that, even his right-hand man Edmark had been assassinated. This action was undoubtedly a blatant provocation. His severed right arm still hadn't recovered, and the serious injury effect was much stronger than he had imagined. Not only did it inhibit his ability to recover, but it also made Night Ghost Spirit Emperor feel an unprecedented pain in his severed arm. The injuries caused by the unknown object smashing through his arm felt like ants were gnawing at it, constantly eating away at his wound. Any results from the investigation? Night Ghost Spirit Emperor asked his subordinate next to him. Reporting to Lord Spirit Emperor. We're still in the investigation stage. The subordinate replied. Useless. Night Ghost Spirit Emperor was furious. What information can we find out now? Trembling with fear, Night Chief's subordinate replied. At the moment, the tracking magic treasure shows that it's within Songhai City. We can basically conclude that it wasn't done by venerated immortals. It was probably done deliberately by someone with ulterior motives. Chapter 574. The battle was still going on. Although the Bone King had cracked from the big muzzle, just now, it wasn't really damaged, which was one of its freewheeling characteristics. It was precisely because the Bone King had the ability to mold a person's imagination into the weapon they wanted, so to put it bluntly, it was like plasticine. If you poked a hole in plasticine, you just needed to rub it a little more and it would recover. So when Loopy Toad saw the fresh cracks on the Bone King recover bit by bit, it felt that this characteristic was simply a little heaven-defying. It was the same as having a self-healing attribute. Little Masterling doesn't have to worry about my magic weapon breaking anymore. On the other side, the Goldenback Gorilla and the Land Shark Aluminum Small Fish had tired expressions on their faces after they used the strengthened Big Muzzle version of Floating Waves Belch. The Big Muzzle had a very strong impact and a fierce recoil. The Goldenback Gorilla had almost been directly thrown out of the arena by the recoil just now. During this process, apart from casting the Sound Wave spell, Aluminum Small Fish also had to use some strength to suppress the Goldenback Gorilla and stabilize the cannon. But even with such a fierce consumption of strength, the dog actually hadn't been thrown out of the arena. Jinbei and Aluminum Small Fish were startled at the same time. Was this dog a holdout? Aluminum Small Fish had initially calculated that this dog would be very difficult to deal with in close combat, so she had planned to use a long-range attack to try and throw the other party out of the arena. But she never expected her attacks to fail one after another. Jinbei put down the broken golden bell shield with an unsightly expression on its face. It had lost a magic weapon. But even so, it actually hadn't been able to throw the dog out. Where on earth did this dog come from? Aluminum Small Fish frowned as it tried to think of a countermeasure. It looked at the useless pet trainer behind it with incomparable disdain in its eyes. It was obvious that this green-furred dog was already more powerful than this trash pet trainer had imagined. It didn't make sense at all that a hybrid green-furred Akita could have this kind of strength. What do we do now? The Goldenback Gorilla's shoulder hurt from the blast just now, and after putting down the golden bell shield, there was a deep dent in its shoulder. It realized that it already couldn't lift its shoulder. The powerful recoil had actually dislocated it. There was a good saying, "Don't be afraid of a godlike opponent, just be afraid, forget it." Aluminum Small Fish gritted its teeth. It felt that taking the initiative to seek out teammates was already shameful enough. However, the problem was that in a 2-versus-1 situation, they were actually unable to deal with the green-furred dog in front of them. This made Aluminum Small Fish feel humiliated and ashamed. Xia Fei couldn't bear to watch the situation any longer. Jinbei and Aluminum Small Fish were consuming too much spirit energy. They should have listened to their pet trainers and used some probing attacks in the beginning. Xia Fei wanted to say something, but when he saw Aluminum Small Fish gritting her teeth, he didn't dare to speak. He could imagine that even if he kindly reminded it now, the land shark would definitely roll its eyes and say, "Don't order me," or something like that. Brother dog. Charge. Take advantage of its weakness. Kill him. Use the Bone King to borrow strength. Wei Ji knew that the Goldenback Gorilla and the land shark had consumed a lot of their spiritual power, so this was the best time to attack. Compared with Jinbei and Aluminum Small Fish on the other side, Dog 2 was very cooperative with Wei Ji, and this tacit understanding was astonishing. He was clearly just a pet trainer who was taking part in the battle, but his cooperation with this green-furred dog was surprisingly good, as if he was its owner. Loopy Toad was willing to cooperate with Wei Ji on one hand to give him face, and on the other hand to conceal its strength. That was because if it listened to Wei Ji's commands and won, given his SSR-level pet trainer aptitude, most people would definitely give him all the credit. Loopy Toad had originally come to participate in this battle of spirit beasts to test its actual combat level, not to show off. But Loopy Toad indeed had to admit that Wei Ji had a special affinity when it came to commanding battles, which was probably due to his personal charm. An SSR-level pet trainer's personal charm was also very important. Loopy Toad knew that the weasel at Wei Ji's side was the spirit beast that had been with him the longest and was practically inseparable. At that time, the weasel actually had a very serious mental illness, and it was Wei Ji who had opened its heart bit by bit. It was also from then on that Wei Ji began to have a constitution that wasn't afraid of electric shocks. Now, Wei Ji called this using love to generate electricity. After hearing Wei Ji's order, Loopy Toad instantly moved. The Bone King in its hand had already completely recovered, and it actually used it to do a pole vault. Raising its paws, it used the first form plus the second form of the basic dog skills as it poured spirit energy into its dog paws. Buttface pole vaulting into the ground seemed like a meaningless action, but in fact, it wasn't. Buttface had used the strength of his forelimbs and the explosive force of his hind limbs to instantly leap into the sky and reach an unprecedented height. This series of actions could be said to have been done in one go. Faint green spirit light lingered around Loopy Toad's dog paw, and as it fell from the sky, it split into countless fist shadows with the sound of explosions. Dog 2's strength was too great, and the acceleration of its fall from the sky also increased its close-range speed by a notch. It was like a sky full of meteors falling to the ground, far from what the land shark and the clumsy goldenback gorilla could compare to. The basic dog skills actually weren't anything fancy, but when combined with the Bone King's pole vault, the sky full of fist shadows falling from the sky suddenly gave people a sense of déjà vu. The moment it landed, Loopy Toad's mind was filled with a carefree feeling, but it was also enlightened. Even if there weren't any fancy, ordinary spirit techniques, as long as it was coordinated with a little movement, it would still have a miraculous effect. Stupid monkey! Let's join hands and block it with all our strength. Aluminum small fish grit its teeth. The goldenback gorilla grunted and crossed its thick arms. Just as it was about to assume a defensive stance, it suddenly felt something push it. The land shark had actually pushed it forward to use it as a shield. Jinbei? Aluminum small fish, what are you looking at? You've never seen a beautiful fish before. You block it, I'll transfer some energy to you from behind. Jinbei realized that it had been tricked. What ***king transfer of energy? It wasn't like this was some kind of lucky game. Loopy Toad didn't hold anything back in its attack this time. After practicing with Sheep and Jinka previously, Loopy Toad could already punch at least 200 times per second with just the first and second forms of the basic dog skills. The fist shadows were like streaks of green flaming meteors as they struck the ground. The goldenback gorilla was actually dazed at this scene, and it thought of a song it liked very much. You're as beautiful as fireworks. So beautiful, lightly streaking across the empty sky. The moment the goldenback gorilla and aluminum small fish were sent flying by the fierce fist shadows, the goldenback gorilla was actually very calm. Only when it came into direct contact with the impact could it feel the difference in strength. When aluminum small fish felt the impact, it was already cursing in its heart, F****K. This dog is actually so strong. Chapter 575. It was simply too exaggerated. Buttface's series of dog skills were dazzling, and he won the match in a way that exceeded everyone's expectations. The commentator announced, Aluminum small fish and Jinbei have lost the ability to fight. Contestant Dog 2 wins. Everyone was dumbfounded. They had thought that it would be a tie, but never expected it to be a one-sided victory. At that moment, a lot of people focused their attention on Wei Ji, suddenly feeling that this unknown, SSR-level, pet trainer was something. He had given a lot of instructions in the fight just now, and he had cooperated very well with this green-furred dog. Furthermore, he had analyzed some of the enemy's intentions quite well. But why didn't they have any impression of such a formidable person? Even the commentator was puzzled. Then, the commentator began to flip through the information on domestic pet trainers based on Wei Ji's face. There weren't many SSR-level appraisers, so there would definitely be records on the Pet Trainers Guild's official website. Then, the commentator saw a photo of Wei Ji and a weasel, and when he saw the weasel, he slapped his face in realization. So it was him. That perennial second. But today, it seemed that he had finally taken back first place. The point was that this wasn't a large-scale competition. In the hall of the Spirit Beast Assessment Center, a white-haired old man in a suit was watching the broadcast. What does Lord President think? A young man asked in a low voice. Not bad, he's a promising talent. It just so happens that our spirit beast class is still short of manpower, the old man said. How about we directly send someone to talk to him? That's not appropriate right now. The old man shook his head. A group of people has been pretending to be us before, saying that our Society of Saints is forcibly recruiting students and creating a foul atmosphere. It's better to wait a little longer. First, go check the information on this contestant dog 2's real owner. I intend to sign him. You're signing him just like that? The young man was blank. Although there weren't many spirit beasts enrolled in the Society of Saints spirit beast class, they had all been carefully selected after layers of assessments. This was because after entering the spirit beast class, all the contracted spirit beasts would undergo systematic training and enjoy the resources provided directly by the country. They would be able to enjoy unprecedented treatment in the shortest time possible. Not only would their cultivation speed increase, but most importantly, there would also be a merit system. This merit system wasn't limited to the spirit beast class. The entire Society of Saints had it. By carrying out the missions assigned by the Society of Saints, the merit obtained from the missions would be worth it, and the merit could be exchanged for the corresponding cadre position. In theory, as long as one had enough merit points, even a spirit beast could become a district mayor or even a mayor. In the various classes of the Society of Saints, if one's merit points reached the level of a class monitor, they would be on equal footing with the mayor of a city. We're not in a hurry to sign the contract. This time, we have to do our homework and show our sincerity. You can draw up a contract first, the old man said slowly through sound transmission. The rest of the conversation was confidential. The young man nodded. Sir, I've already drafted the contract for the Spirit Beast class members. It'll be done soon. The old man replied, No, it's not a member's contract. The youth? The old man, I want to directly sign it as class monitor. The young man sucked in a cold breath. Class monitor? The old man said telepathically, So it's even more important that we communicate well with the dog's owner. The contract can take the form of a transfer contract or a co-ownership contract. We still have a lot of funds, and this dog's owner is probably just an ordinary foundation establishment student at number 60 high school. He definitely won't be able to resist this temptation. And it's not just funds, we can also directly offer resources to this dog's owner, such as transferring him to a key city high school or sending him to university. The young assistant was directly alarmed. Lord President, do you think this is worth it? This dog is indeed very amazing, but we haven't tested it yet. You don't know. The old man shook his head and smiled slightly. Did you see the pet trainer who commanded this dog today? Do you know who he is? The young assistant looked at the screen and felt that he looked a little familiar, but he had no impression of him. The old man said, This person has an extraordinary background. He became an SSR-level pet trainer at such a young age. A lot of people might not have any impression of him, but I have a very deep impression of him. Back then, when our Society of Saints recruited core organization cadres, I personally went to negotiate with this person. I offered generous conditions that even a soul formation cultivator couldn't refuse, but this person still wasn't moved. But later, I realized that it's actually not a bad thing that this person didn't come to our Society of Saints. The young assistant, What do you mean, Lord President? The old man, Because this person is very good at identifying spirit beasts. Any spirit beast that catches his eye definitely won't be simple. Of the 5 spirit beasts we've recruited so far, I've actually followed him, and then signed 3 of them. The young assistant, As long as it's a spirit beast that this Mr. Wei Ji fancies, it won't only have excellent aptitude, great talent, and upright values. Furthermore, its heart will definitely be filled with a sense of justice and in line with our core cultivation values. The old man sked. The point is, don't you think this dog is very pleasing to the eye? The young assistant was stupefied and fell silent. He didn't speak for a long time. To be honest, he felt that it was a bit arbitrary to sign a class monitor contract based on this point alone. I know you're definitely not convinced right now. But sometimes you have to believe in superstitions. The president said. Previously, I took a fancy to a university student's spirit dog. It's a very magnetic spirit dog. The young assistant raised an eyebrow. He had heard about this before. Lord President, are you talking about the spirit dog under Zhao Yusin, a graduate student at Lower Gate Cultivation University? Its name is Jie. That's right. That's it. The old man nodded. It's a very powerful spirit dog, a ninja spirit beast. It also has a very strong imitation ability and can imitate the fighting style of other spirit beasts. It used to have a nickname, Copy Dog. The young assistant nodded. In fact, he also had some doubts. Then why didn't you sign it after that? The old man said, I deliberately sent someone to find that student, and then arranged for Mr. Wei Ji to meet this dog in private. In the end, I found that Mr. Wei Ji actually had a look of disdain on his face. Later, I sent someone to carefully investigate the dog's owner and the background of this dog. The young assistant, and then, the old man, I actually found out that this university student had actually falsified his academic thesis. Not only that, but this female dog under his command had bad values. It had repeatedly insulted our country. After that, this old man didn't sign it and handed in a report. The young assistant sighed. Then it should have been expelled already, right? The old man shook his head. It was just a warning to stay in school. Chapter 576. While the president of the Society of Saints was complaining about this, the young assistant checked the information on his phone in passing. This matter had actually already been exposed online, but it seemed to have been suppressed. Despite all the major media outlets reposting it one after another, the owner of this spirit dog who had posted insulting remarks about the country on an online platform and who had falsified academic papers hadn't been expelled, but had instead been given detention at school with a warning. Interestingly, the young assistant also found another piece of news about 36 high school students who hadn't gone to bed in time and had been persuaded to leave school. In the end, after their parents pleaded on their behalf, they were also given detention at school with a warning. The seriousness of these two matters was completely different, but the severity of the punishment was the same. The young assistant felt that when these two matters were strung together, it was full of holes to complain about. It was actually useless to blame this spirit dog at this time. There was a saying before that a spirit sword was like its master, which meant that when the rapport between a spirit sword and its master reached a certain peak, a sword spirit would be born. A sword spirit's personality would often be more similar to its master's. In fact, this wasn't limited to sword spirits. It was the same for artifact spirits bred by other magic treasures and spirit beasts. Dog spirit beasts were loyal to their masters, and in most cases, the master's 3 views and growth environment would also subtly influence their contract spirit beasts. But this matter had already been exposed online, and the severity of the punishment was actually just a warning. The young assistant sighed and said telepathically to the old man, "This dog's owner isn't simple. There's definitely a connection." After I handed in the warning information, someone immediately contacted me and told me not to meddle in this matter. That person's original rank was a little higher than mine. The old man smiled. The young assistant nodded. If it wasn't for the fact that Lord President still hasn't vacated his position as the new president of the Society of Saints, it wouldn't be hard to get rid of this kind of scum. That's right. The old man nodded. But we have to wait for the head of state to announce his new identity. Furthermore, we have to wait for all 6 classes of the Society of Saints, including the Spirit Beast class, to be in place before we make the announcement. The unified statement to the outside world is that the Society of Saints currently doesn't have a president and is directly under the jurisdiction of Huaxiao Alliance and led by Secretary Dekeng. At that time, we won't need to specially hand in information to get rid of this kind of scum, we just need to put pressure on them. The position of president of the Society of Saints was on the same level as that of the 10 generals. This person insulted the country first. Even if he has a backer behind him, he won't be able to run rampant for long. I won't have to deal with him personally. Naturally, someone won't be able to. After he had been warned by his former boss, he had silently opened a secondary account and left a message under author Wang Situ's Weibo. Everyone in the cultivation circle now knew that this author had a huge fan base. A few days ago, the fight for monthly votes had directly shaken half of Huaxiao Nation's cultivation circle. The old man smiled and stared at the young assistant in front of him. I still need you to keep an eye on the current situation, little Han. I have a premonition that this green-furred dog is very special. In the past, I've never seen Mr. Wei Ji show such a happy expression towards a spirit beast when I was tailing him. The young man named Han Ji nodded and said, "What are you saying, President Fu? Since you have made up your mind, this subordinate will do his best to arrange it." President Fu of the Society of Saints said, "When you find this person's address, you must bring a gift and pay him a visit in person. Make it clear why you're here, and try to keep a low profile and be gentle. If you can't come to an agreement, don't be too anxious. Also, I have buy. We buy, we Wei Society, Su that by gift." "Very well, President." Han Jin asked, "Do you want to prepare a gift bag of snacks?" Nowadays, a lot of foundation establishment students seem to like snacks, like spicy strips or crispy noodle snacks. Won't the elixirs we provide be more impressive? Snacks were really too low class. Won't it be more tempting to directly use the Super Spirit Elixir? The old man chuckled. This Super Spirit Elixir was a resource that the government personally allocated to the top scorers of various subjects after foundation establishment cultivators entered Golden Core universities. Normal people absolutely wouldn't be able to resist this temptation. Dog 2 had won a landslide victory in the Battle of Spirit Beasts, and number 60 High had also achieved pretty good results in the other events in the district sports meet this time. They had even broken the historical records of Key High School's Reliance High School and Prime Elevation High School in some of the events. Wang Ling was about to leave after school when he noticed a group of people gathered around Dopey Gua to look at the results of the sports meet. Number 60 High had ranked second overall in the sports meet this time. It was already at the level of a Key City High School. We were really lucky this time. Everyone performed exceptionally well, as if they were on steroids. Dopey Gua was also beyond shocked as he looked at the results of the sports meet. "I told you that Wang Ling is a mascot." Super Chen sked. Wang Ling was about to leave when Super Chen's sudden words left him with black question marks on his face. "Super Chen, did you notice that Wang Ling broke records in all the events he participated in? It's as if he's manipulating things behind the scenes. Now it turns out that he's a mascot." Wang Ling. Because of the Battle of Spirit Beasts in the afternoon, the rest of the school schedule had been cancelled, and there was a break in the afternoon. Thus, school ended especially early today. When Wang Ling got home, Dog 2 had sent him a text saying that Wei Ji had asked it to stay for dinner. The old man, on the other hand, had been taken out by Mother Wang. Apparently, he wasn't going to buy groceries, but to check out tour itineraries and book tickets at a travel agency. Supposedly, the old man suddenly wanted to go on a trip. But Wang Ling felt that there was something fishy about this, because there was still a food duel between the old man and Jiang Bai's father, the head of Kitchen Knife Sect, from regular class 2. The old man had been preparing for this for a long time, and there was no way he would give up on the idea of going on a trip just like that. Furthermore, Father Wang wasn't typing today, nor was he smoking a cigar dejectedly on the sofa. Instead, he was rummaging through the drawers and cabinets in the basement, looking for something. When Father Wang had rummaged through the basement the last time, he had found the pile of love letters that Grandfather Wang had written to his first love, Teacher Pan. Wang Ling thought about today's date. It was July 20th on Thursday in the 13th week of the semester. Was today an important day? "Ling Ling, you're back?" Suddenly, Father Wang shouted from the basement. Wang Ling teleported to Father Wang's side and saw Father Wang take out an old box from the storage room. He then took out a box the size of a shoe box from the box, and then a black box from the box. Finally, he took out a small note from the black box. Father Wang looked at Wang Ling. "I had your grandfather send your mom away just now, Wang Ling." He could already tell. "Father Wang, today isn't our wedding anniversary. Instead, it's the first day I met your mom. This note is a song I wrote before. It's called The Starry Sky's Language of Love. I just need to compose and arrange the music. Ling Ling, can you do me a favor? Wang Ling. Chapter 577. Father Wang had written these lyrics the first time he had met Mother Wang. Actually, Wang Ling had never really understood their love history. However, the relationship between an old married couple had always been pretty good, and it was actually very normal for them to stumble. But Wang Ling felt that the number of times Father and Mother Wang had quarreled since he was young could be counted on his fingers. Wang Ling had wondered whether today was their wedding anniversary, but when he looked at the time, it didn't seem right. Now that he heard Father Wang say this, Wang Ling was suddenly enlightened. He could even remember the first day they met. It seemed that it had been love at first sight back then. Lyrics of The Starry Sky's Language of Love. Walking alone in this world, does it seem a little lonely watching the Big Dipper in the cool night breeze? How I wish I had you with me. Our memories are in the night sky. Remember when I interpreted the language of the stars with you? What mystery is there in liking? What mystery is there in liking throwing everything away? It seems there is only confusion. When I was young, I watched the meteors fill the sky, always thinking of who could accompany me walking through the forest with you to the precipice, watching the starry sky shine on my hometown in the wind. Only after many years do I understand why the starry sky is colored, because we are together. Want to take you to compose the language of love in ink, holding my breath as I wander the galaxy. Wang Ling glanced at the lyrics Father Wang had written and marveled at his writing in his heart. When all was said and done, Father Wang specialized in his craft. Writing songs required talent, but Wang Ling's heavenly ear could connect to other world lines. Last time, he had helped Tang Yuning, whom he had met in late-night dining hall, write Old Boys. But in many cases, working in the literary and artistic field depended on luck and talent. Tang Yuning had become popular for a while with that song, but he had later grown tired of it. Wang Ling had also heard from late-night dining hall's boss, Boss Tan, that after Tang Yuning had become popular, Tang Yuning hadn't gone to late-night dining hall even once. So sometimes, people really couldn't forget their roots. When Tang Yuning had been starving, Boss Tan had helped him a lot, not only by feeding him but also providing him with a venue to perform. But human nature was in the end too hard to fathom. There were many good people in the world, but there were always a few who were ungrateful. Looking at Father Wang's poem, Wang Ling was lost in thought. It would of course be very easy to get a song from another world, but the problem was that Father Wang had written the lyrics himself, so it was an original song. Wang Ling needed to find a suitable melody from another world. It was much more complicated than plagiarizing a song for Tang Yuning back then. As long as you can give me the composition today. Father Wang rubbed his hands together with a pleading expression on his face. I want to find a chance to hum it to your mother later. It's just a simple brainwashing. There's no need to hurry with the arrangement. Just do it before our wedding anniversary. Wang Ling frowned. He actually wanted to help, but he hadn't finished his homework yet. Father Wang knew Wang Ling's character all too well. In this guy's eyes, apart from crispy noodle snacks, homework was his #1 priority. He would definitely help, but it was just a matter of sequence. He hoped that Wang Ling would settle on the composition as soon as possible. The sooner, the better. After thinking about it, Father Wang finally decided to pay the price. Wang Ling didn't care about ordinary crispy noodle snacks at all. Now that he had all kinds of annual cards and gold cards, he could taste the latest crispy noodle snack flavor every week. Furthermore, the Crispy Noodle Snack flagship store on Spirit Creek Road would send him a big gift pack during the holidays. Thus, Father Wang had already spent a lot of money on custom-made crispy noodle snacks specially for Wang Ling's taste. Father Wang whispered in Wang Ling's ear about the crispy noodle snack flavor. In the end, Wang Ling's eyes instantly widened, because this was a flavor he couldn't refuse. After confirming the flavor, Father Wang held up 3 fingers. 3 packets. Wang Ling frowned. Although 3 packets was very tempting, it wasn't enough for him to eat to his heart's content. Father Wang took a deep breath. 5 packets? Wang Ling's eyes widened, but he still didn't agree. Father Wang grit his teeth. 8 packets. This was already all he had in stock. Deal. Wang Ling nodded. Father Wang heaved a huge sigh of relief. The price of each custom-made crispy noodle snack was equivalent to 3 days' worth of royalties. It looked like he would have to order more later. If he still had to ask Wang Ling for help in the future, he would have to prepare at least 10 packets in stock. Helping Father Wang compose music actually wasn't that complicated for Wang Ling. The main thing was that it was troublesome, because he had to find the right melody from each world line according to the lyrics, which took more time than doing homework. Father Wang's lyrics were a kind of spit song with a refreshing tone. What was a spit song? It was the kind that didn't burn the brain, and the melody was especially brainwashing. One of the biggest characteristics of this kind of song was that it was very contagious, and anyone could hum a few lines to it. But it wouldn't work in a music competition, because it wouldn't be able to show off one's singing skills at all. However, a lot of the popular songs on the market now were spit songs, such as Buddhist Girl and I Am Willing, both of which were spit songs. Wang Ling pricked up his ears, and the heavenly ear ability scanned countless world lines as if it was receiving radio waves. In the end, he found a singer called Old is Old, who sang a song whose melody just happened to connect with Father Wang's, The Starry Skies Language of Love. Number 60 High School had music classes, and Wang Ling himself could play the guitar, so he immediately wrote down a score based on the melody and lyrics, and then sent it to Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had sung that magically altered version of Take You on a Journey before, and Wang Ling had felt that Grenade-throwing had a talent for singing. When Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal saw the score and the lyrics, he was stunned, and hurriedly wrote back to Wang Ling, Brother Ling, who wrote these lyrics? Wang Ling typed back, Senior Wang wrote them. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal replied almost at the same time. Damn. This is simply the work of a genius. Senior Wang's song, this melody, these lyrics, shocking the world and making the gods weep. My scalp goes numb, my thighs tremble, and I get goosebumps all over. Listening to it makes me want to fall in love. Wang Ling. Could this bootlicking be any more obvious? But to be honest, the melody of this song was pretty good. At the very least, it was very brainwashing, and it was indeed very cheerful. When do you want this song? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal asked. Wang Ling's answer was concise. Right away. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Good. I'll sing it right away. About 5 minutes later, Wang Ling sent the composition file to Father Wang. Father Wang was startled when he heard Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's voice, and he hurriedly turned around to look for Wang Ling. Is this Little Lay's song? Wang Ling nodded. Father Wang was shocked. Damn. This singing was too good. This voice. This singing. Shocking the world and making the gods weep. My scalp goes numb. Wang Ling. Chapter 578. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal finished singing The Language of the Starry Skies Language of Love. He had composed the entire song as he played the piano. His voice was very clear and beautiful, and Little Silver was dazed when he heard it and couldn't help coming over to watch. Although Little Silver had heard that Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal could sing pretty well, he hadn't expected him to actually sing so well. His voice was really sweet. He was clearly thousands of years old, but his voice still sounded like that of an 18-year-old boy experiencing his first awakening of love. There were a lot of spells and elixirs in the cultivation world to beautify one's voice, but the effects of these spells and elixirs were the same as Nanhan Country's plastic surgery, and they were all the same. Currently, the most popular singers in the entertainment industry relied on their unique voices to become popular. Everyone's voice was different, and they had to have their own characteristics to become popular. Grenade-throwing, you sing pretty well. Little Silver leaned against the wall and folded his arms as he listened happily. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal closed the lid of the piano and sighed. I actually wanted to debut before, but I gave up. Little Silver didn't understand. Why? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal took a deep breath. Because I'm too strong. I have to give young people a chance. Little Silver, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, if I debut, Fong Jeluan and Zhou Wunshan won't be a problem, Little Silver. Did you write this song? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal shook his head. Senior Wang wrote it for his wife, Brother Ling composed the music, and I sang a short demo. So it was written by Master's master. Little Silver's eyes lit up. Recalling the melody just now, he suddenly looked a little envious. How romantic. It reminds me of a poem. I've been studying Huaxia's ancient culture recently. It's really broad and profound. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal raised his eyebrows. Tell me about it. Little Silver blurted out. 100 years of cultivation crossed the same boat. Hearing this, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was about to praise Little Silver for his slight improvement in understanding of modern human culture. In the end, Little Silver paused before continuing. 8,000 years of cultivation, Astro Boy, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. That night, Loopy Toad had dinner at Wei Ji's house. When it followed Wei Ji in, the security guards at the ground floor of the family apartment looked at it with smiles on their faces, brimming with enthusiasm. This was a dog that had been personally chosen by the marshal, so no one dared to show a sour face. Actually, Wei Ji felt that Loopy Toad had a special affinity. At first glance, the color of this dog's fur was a little strange, but the more he looked at it, the more he liked it. Passing by the apartment block, Loopy Toad saw an old mother carrying a basket. Little Wei, did you bring your dog friend here to play again? Yes, Aunt Zhao. Wei Ji greeted the old auntie. Loopy Toad raised its head to look at this Auntie Zhao, and was immediately on guard because it felt that this person was very strong. As a spirit beast, Loopy Toad could almost immediately sense this aura rather than aura. It felt that this old auntie's identity was not simple. But the other party didn't pay much attention to Loopy Toad, and instead smiled at it as if it were an old friend. Loopy Toad guessed that the news about Marshal Jiang giving it special privileges at the door last time had most likely spread in the apartment. There were a lot of old aunties and uncles in the family apartment, and when they had nothing to do, they liked to discuss this kind of daily gossip. Who was Marshal Jiang? Everyone in the family apartment knew that he was Battle Saint, one of the 10 founding generals. Every word he said had weight behind it. Loopy Toad was silent. It didn't know whether this was a good or bad thing. In any case, it felt that after following Little Master Ling for a long time, it would sometimes think that it was better to keep a low profile. In the end, it was this Aunt Zhao who smiled at it, then paused to stroke the soft fur on Loopy Toad's head. Your dog friend looks a little nervous. A very fresh spirit energy spread out from this Aunt Zhao's palm, and Loopy Toad actually felt very comfortable. Damn, so comfortable, as expected. This old auntie wasn't simple. Looking at Aunt Zhao, Loopy Toad wanted to say something, but didn't know how to say it. Don't worry, Little Wei's friend has a good character and a good beast. Aunt Zhao said. Everyone in our apartment watched Little Wei grow up. Old Jiang greeted you at the door last time, so you can be more casual in the apartment from now on. It's no big deal. So don't be too nervous. We should be the ones who should be nervous. Wei Ji, what's wrong, Aunt Zhao? Aunt Zhao, how old are you? Have you ever brought a girlfriend to the apartment in so many years? We now seriously suspect. Wei Ji, Auntie, I don't have such strong tastes. Aunt Zhao, that's good, Loopy Toad. Where are you going, Aunt Zhao? Asked Wei Ji. I just got a call from old Jiang of the neighborhood committee. He said that foreign forces have invaded the border, and he wants me to hurry over to deal with it. He's busy right now and can't leave. Aunt Zhao covered her mouth and smiled. I'll be back soon. Wei Ji nodded as if this was normal. Be careful, Aunt Zhao. Don't worry, I'm not using this basket to buy groceries. Do you know the flying guillotine? This basket is an improved version of the flying guillotine. It's the kind that can be thrown out to directly harvest people's heads. But in order to weaken the enemy's guard, I modified it to look like this, said Aunt Zhao. Loopy Toad felt that this Aunt Zhao was talking about something very scary with a calm expression on her face. Because she was in a hurry to deal with this important matter, Aunt Zhao didn't drag Wei Ji out to chat for too long this time. This could already be considered being merciful. Sometimes, Wei Ji was afraid of running into some overly enthusiastic old aunties and uncles in the apartment, otherwise he wouldn't be able to go back for at least half an hour. After this, Aunt Zhao said goodbye to Wei Ji. Loopy Toad watched her walk to the entrance of the apartment before her figure flickered and she directly disappeared. Who is this auntie? Loopy Toad was very curious about this mysterious old auntie. Aunt Zhao was Uncle Zhang's secretary back then, and has always worked for him. Her Taoist name is Holy Lotus Tao Monarch, Wei Ji replied. Loopy Toad thought about this name, but couldn't think of it. It was probably a Taoist name from a long time ago. Since these old seniors had abdicated and retired, they no longer called each other by Taoist names. Over time, some legendary Taoist names had been lost in the memories of the younger generation, and it was probably only the older generation who knew about them. Looking at Loopy Toad's clueless expression, Wei Ji suddenly mentioned a name. Do you know Cailian Jinren? Loopy Toad nodded. I do. Of course it knew this person. She was the only female cultivator in Grenade Throwing Senior Immortals chat group. Furthermore, when little Master Ling was 10 years old, she had once launched a round of attacks on him with facial cleanser. As Wei Ji pressed the elevator button, he said lightly, "This Aunt Zhao is Cailian Jinren's Shifu." What a small world. Chapter 579. When it arrived at Wei Ji's house again, Loopy Toad already didn't feel as unfamiliar as it had at the beginning. This was because Wei Ji, this invisible nouveau riche, was connected to 4 households, and he had set up all kinds of ecological environments inside, which made the entire house look very complicated. If Wei Ji hadn't led the way at the beginning, Loopy Toad really wouldn't have been able to get its bearings. But this time, Loopy Toad was already completely familiar with the place. When it entered, Loopy Toad saw the pushing large butterfly fly over and perch on Wei Ji's shoulder, which he couldn't help sinking a little. After not seeing it for a while, this pushing large butterfly had grown heavier again. It had obviously been raised very fat by Wei Ji. The pushing large butterfly was a kind of economical and practical spirit beast. Its attributes were relatively balanced, and its biggest characteristics were its loyalty and practicality. The sleeping powder and tranquilizer powder on the pushing large butterfly in particular were very useful when it was training in the wild, and it was very suitable for pet trainers to take out for training. Of course, the highest grade a pushing large butterfly could reach wouldn't be too high, and was at most 3rd class. But it was a different story if it could become a butterfly emperor. The pushing large butterfly in Wei Ji's hand clearly had the bloodline of a butterfly emperor, otherwise Wei Ji wouldn't have taken a liking to it so easily. This was a common spirit beast that pet trainers like to use in the early and middle stages. But Wei Ji was an SSR-level pet trainer, and he was raising a spirit beast that could be called a novice level, so Loopy Toad felt that this pushing large butterfly definitely wasn't simple. And sure enough, it was just as Loopy Toad had expected. After the pushing large butterfly rested on his shoulder, Wei Ji looked at the stamen of the tyrant spirit flower that the pushing large butterfly had rested on previously. This tyrant spirit flower had been specially cultivated by Wei Ji indoors. The nectar that the tyrant spirit flower secreted every day was the pushing large butterfly's food. Loopy Toad moved closer to take a look, and found that there was actually some cotton candy-like silk mesh on the flower's petals. This was the pushing large butterfly's nest. As expected, it has the bloodline of a butterfly emperor. Loopy Toad sked. Among pushing large butterflies, only a butterfly emperor could do this kind of thing. Of course, this is a spirit beast that I signed. Wei Ji looked at the new nest on the flower petal and was rather delighted. Among the adult pushing large butterflies, only the pushing large butterflies with the bloodline of the butterfly sovereign have the ability to build nests. When the nest is 90% built, it will attract many young pushing large butterflies to follow it. If they can attract the pushing large butterfly that also has the butterfly sovereign's bloodline to complete the last 10% of the nest, the 2 pushing large butterflies will mate. At this point, Wei Ji sighed and used his finger to gently touch the pushing large butterfly's brightly colored wings on his shoulder. However, there are too few pushing large butterflies with the bloodline of a butterfly sovereign. Furthermore, a butterfly sovereign is a national-level protected spirit beast. It's actually very rare now. A national-level protected spirit beast. Then the one you're carrying. S-rank pet trainers and above have the right to raise national second-class and third-class protected spirit beasts. SSR rank, no restrictions, Wei Ji replied quickly. Loopy Toad nodded. I see. I went to many places to find this pushing large butterfly with the butterfly sovereign's bloodline. Wei Ji seemed to have recalled many things. How did you find it? Loopy Toad stared at the pushing large butterfly curiously. It had come into contact with this pushing large butterfly many times, and it had seen that it was quite close to Wei Ji, but it didn't know what the story between the two was. Wei Ji, actually, it wasn't that difficult to sign the contract. It was still very young back then. It was just that it wasn't easy to find out. It was its clan's third prince. It didn't want to inherit the throne, so it left with me. Loopy Toad was stunned. There was this kind of operation? Wei Ji specially treated Loopy Toad to a big steak from his family's Shinfu beef. This beef was very expensive, and most pet trainers definitely didn't have it at home. When Wei Ji cut up the beef and fried it, Loopy Toad suddenly felt a little embarrassed. Loopy Toad, this beef is pretty expensive, Wei Ji, it's fine? In any case, it was a scam from the vice president's family. Just yesterday, he lost a bet with me again. He lost his family's luxurious Fenrir dinner to me. It just so happens that I can't eat it by myself, so I'll fry it and eat it together. It'll also give you some nutrition. Loopy Toad, Wei Ji, actually, apart from the Bone King, there have probably been dozens of other times. The vice president especially likes to gamble with me. But he always loses something to me. Loopy Toad suddenly felt that this vice president of the Pet Trainers Guild, crying old Immortal, was a little miserable. So it turned out that gambling really wasn't a good thing. It wasn't just that a small gamble was good for the mood, but a big one was bad for the body. Whether it was a small gamble or a big one, it was still a gamble. If you won, you wanted to win again, and if you lost, you wanted to recoup your losses. This thing was forever a bottomless pit. No one in the Wang family had this habit. Father and Mother Wang never bet with others, and didn't even buy lottery tickets or stocks. Father Wang was never interested in these kinds of opportunistic ways to make money. Loopy Toad also remembered that Father Wang had specially set 3 rules with Little Master Ling. Since a young age, Father Wang had told Little Master Ling that he wasn't allowed to use his ability to earn ill-gotten gains in any form. Making money down to earth was a skill. As he fried the steak, Wei Yi couldn't help laughing. I reckon that the vice president's Fenrir will howl again tonight. Both of them are of royal blood, but our family's big clawing butterfly saves me time and money. Loopy Toad was blank when it heard this. In fact, in theory, it was also a spirit beast with royal blood. It should be said that it had a royal soul. In the past, whenever Loopy Toad thought of its former identity as a demon king, it couldn't help feeling disappointed and sad. But now it felt more at ease. Because tomorrow, it would go and put an end to everything with its own claws. Although it might not be able to be its former king in the future, Loopy Toad actually enjoyed its current life. Wang Ling looked like a lonely person, but Loopy Toad realized that when it was with him, it didn't feel lonely at all. Furthermore, it had met a lot of friends through Wang Ling. Wei Ji looked at Loopy Toad and wondered what this brother dog was thinking about. Although he had never met Wang Ling before, he had always been very curious about him. What kind of person was he to be able to raise such a magical dog? That Fenrir is also of royal blood? Isn't that a natural inheritance? When it came to the topic of royal blood, Loopy Toad actually had a lot of questions in its heart. It was very curious about the similarities and differences in bloodline inheritance between Eastern spirit beasts, demon beasts, and Western magic beasts. Most bloodlines are naturally inherited. The Fenrir in the vice president's house is a purebred. Of course, there are exceptions. Wei Ji said, for example, the legendary Demon Saint of the Demon World. Demon Saint is probably the supreme leader of the demon world, and is one level higher than demon gods. But no one knows how demon saint is inherited. Do you know the holy pillar of the demon world? Chapter 580. Wei Ji was dazed. I remember, it's a landmark? Wei Ji remembered that he had only vaguely read about it in some book, because ever since the appearance of the gate between worlds, the relationship between the demon world and the human cultivation world had always been a hot topic. Over the years, the Pet Trainers Guild had been researching the differences between demon beasts, spirit beasts, and magic beasts. The previous topic had always been the difference between spirit beasts and demonic beasts. However, both spirit beasts and demonic beasts belonged to the same species on Earth, and they both used the spiritual chi of heaven and earth as their source of power. Although they had different habits, there was not much of a difference in their nature. So in fact, the difference between demon beasts and spirit beasts had been a huge field of study in recent years. It wasn't just him. The guild's vice president, and other SSR-level pet trainers were doing everything possible to research it. When the gate between worlds had appeared in the human world, cultivators had captured a lot of demon beasts as samples. In fact, the country had invested a lot of research in the last few years to fund the Pet Trainers Guild to compile analytical teaching materials on demon beasts. In terms of species alone, there were more demon beasts than spirit beasts and magic beasts combined. Their numbers were terrifying, and there were many tribes. According to the information that human cultivators had on the demon world, there were over 100 demon territories in the demon world, each of which was ruled by a demon god. Each territory was divided into several dozen different tribes, and each tribe's chief was a demon king. Subdivided even further, the variety of species could be drawn into a jaw-dropping tree diagram. But even with such a variety of species, the Pet Trainers Guild had still discovered a very important landmark over the years, and that was the holy pillar of the demon world. This was combined with the information obtained from the maps drawn by all the desperate map merchants who had explored the demon realm. Every map merchant went to a different place, but there were always similarities. When all the similarities were combined, they discovered the existence of the holy pillar of the demon world. Brother Dog knows about this holy pillar? Wei Ji was amazed. He felt that Dog 2's knowledge was broader than he had imagined. And the key point was that the holy pillar hadn't actually been announced to the public yet. Currently, there wasn't a single popular science book about the gate between worlds in the library of Heavenly Path outside that had any information about the holy pillar. Yes, that's what I heard. Loopy Toad pretended to be calm as it nodded. Of course it knew about the holy pillar, since it was a demon beast from that corner to begin with. Actually, all demon kings and above actually knew about the holy pillar's origin. Brother Dog is really knowledgeable. Wei Ji had known from the start that Loopy Toad's background wasn't simple. Furthermore, it was already against common sense for it to be able to speak despite its low grade, so he didn't take it to heart that Loopy Toad knew about the existence of the holy pillar. From the very beginning, Wei Ji felt that his brother Dog was a dog that had seen the world, a dog that was fresh and refined, and a dog that was free from vulgar tastes. We only found out about this holy pillar not long ago. Our analysis shows that this is an important landmark in the demon realm, and it has a lot to do with Demon Saint. The closer it is to the demon domain near the sacred pillar, the stronger it is, Wei Ji said. More or less. Loopy Toad nodded. Actually, this research was basically on point, because the holy pillar was originally the center of the demon realm and was surrounded by hundreds of territories. As for why the demon domains closer to the holy pillar were stronger, the reason was actually very simple. Those demon domains were more or less affected by Demon Saint's aura, and became stronger under the radiation of Demon Saint's demon energy. This was already no longer a secret in the demon realm. How far have you come in your research? Loopy Toad couldn't help asking. We're currently studying the relationship between the holy pillar and Demon Saint, Wei Ji replied. Our initial suspicion is that the holy pillar and Demon Saint's inheritance have a lot to do with each other. Although the succession of the Demon Saint seems to be hereditary, and it has already been announced that the current Demon Saint's title is a merman called the second-generation merman, but we generally still believe that there are other ways of succession for the Demon Saint. Other ways of inheritance? Loopy Toad was blank. Even Loopy Toad, a native of the demon world, didn't know what Weiji was talking about. In the demon world, the existence of Demon Saint had always been a mystery. There were hundreds of demon gods in the demon world, but only a few at the very top had actually seen Demon Saint. Even if they had, none of the demon gods could accurately describe what Demon Saint looked like. Many demon beasts knew that Demon Saint had always existed, including Loopy Toad, but they had never known how Demon Saint was inherited. Below demon gods, including demon kings, they had only heard of Demon Saint, and they only knew that demon gods were personally appointed by Demon Saint from among the many demon kings. However, no one knew the specific criteria for being conferred the title of demon god. Most of the demon beasts did not know what a Demon Saint looked like, where he was, or what the criteria for appointing a demon god was, or whether they would send small red packets to the group of demon gods during festivals, or whether they would give a pension to the demon gods after they had inherited the throne for 650 years. As Loopy Toad and Weiji ate the steak, its eyes lit up as it chewed the beef. It was actually very delicious. Loopy Toad exclaimed, "You're a human wife." Weiji replied calmly, "I'm a beast wife." Loopy Toad, "You've used up a lot of energy today, eat more. This beef is a great tonic." Weiji forked a piece of meat and put it in his mouth. "By the way, I haven't asked Brother Dog, where did you get this fist technique from?" "A friend gave it to me, he doesn't need it," said Loopy Toad. This fist technique is pretty powerful. If you cultivate it to the highest level, it'll definitely be very promising. But when I saw you use it today, I felt that something was missing and it looked a little stiff. Your friend probably didn't give you the full set, right?" said Weiji. Loopy Toad replied, "It's the full set, but my friend might have improved it." "I see." Weiji put down his fork and his expression suddenly became very serious. Actually, there are times when an improved technique might not be suitable for everyone. It's best to cultivate according to the original version of the technique. Otherwise, if your spirit energy circulates in the wrong meridian, it's very easy to leave behind sequelae. Loopy Toad was startled. "It can't be that scary, right?" "You can't say for sure," Weiji smiled. "But now it looks like you're pretty used to this technique." Loopy Toad, "There's nothing uncomfortable about it." Weiji, "But we can't rule out the possibility that the sequelae haven't appeared yet." You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.